Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, the Hall of Famer himself, good old Jim Ross. Jim, how are you, man?
Conrad, I've had one hell of a week. I'm blessed. It's been so productive, and met a lot of good people in Charleston. Had a good time. Travel was okay, unlike last week when it was the drizzling Shiazits. The travel, folks, if you don't travel, count your blessings. I was in DFW last Thursday. These Thursdays are the kiss of death. 4 Thursdays in a row now that I've been horribly late getting home. So here's what happened last week. I get to the airport at 1 o'clock, right, from Pittsburgh. Good shape, plenty of time to make my connection. Going to be home about 3 something. Beautiful. So I get there, and there's cloudy weather. There's rain, starting to rain in the outskirts of the airport. So some flights are delayed. Then all of a sudden, I'll go to the Admiral's Club. Not a place to hide for me. Not a bad place, I should say. And I see all these little red things, cancellation, postpone, delay, whatever. So I go to the woman, and I said, at the Admiral's Club, I said, well, okay, honestly, what's the chance we're actually going to go somewhere today? Am I going to be able to get home? Oh, yeah, we'll get home. You'll get home. You'll be fine. So I wait like a mark. I could use that term. I'm a travel mark, I guess. And I sat in the Admiral's Club, even not drinking for a while. I didn't have any cocktails in the Admiral's Club, and, they're fair priced. So I go back, talk to them again. Oh, no, you're... So your flight has been postponed, but we got you back booked on another flight. Long story short, about 7 p.m., I realize I'm getting worked by the airline people. They don't want to lose that fare for that leg on that 29-minute flight from Dallas to Oklahoma City. So I said, well, I'm going to call AEW and give me a car service and take me home. And the American they weren't happy to hear that. It's probably a $300 ticket. Are you kidding me? So I called AEW, and on good old Tony Khan's dime, they sent a driver and an Escalade, and he picked me up at the airport, and we drove my ass home. I got home at 10:30. I left Pittsburgh at 8 a.m. Central Time, even though I know they're Eastern. At 8 a.m. my clock. I got home at 10:30 my time. And I'm sitting there in my chair, going over my mail, all the honeydew stuff you do when you're by yourself, going through the shit, and I keep getting these notifications on my cell phone from American about my flight being delayed. I finally fell asleep about midnight, and I don't know if that flight left or it didn't. But I was at home before it boarded, long before it boarded. So I made the right move there. So I know it didn't leave until after midnight. It's just hard. And that's why I'd like to fly back to Dallas for that one reason. I can get a car service and be home in under 3 hours if I have to. I don't want to do it, but if I have to. But it's just, it was troubling. The travel was troubling. And then I run into this. But I got home safe and sound, so poor me. No big deal. I got here. Then I get the shitstorm of this, the Seth Rollins thing that we talked about last week. Boy, a lot of people agreed, a lot of people didn't. A lot of people disagreed. And then after it set in about a day, these geniuses that follow me on some of the geniuses that follow me on Twitter, and most of the 1.7 million followers I have are seemingly, to me, logically sound of mind. They are decent to talk to. But then there's that small group that's just pet coon effing goofy. I get the feminists to jump on my ship because I use Becky as a quote unquote pawn when I made this flippant remark looking for humor and a little entertainment content that maybe someday he'll be as over as his girlfriend. Well, was that a wise ass remark by me? Yeah, it sure was. Did it have any major validity? Probably not. Looking for a little humor here on our podcast, so we kind of do that. Man, I got gut and quarter Conrad. I don't understand what people's situations are. I don't. Why are we so negative about everything? Is it because of fake news or the internet, or what can we blame it on, Conrad? What can we blame our overt negativity on in today's society? Do you know?
Well, I mean, I think it's just people want to have their voice heard, and they're looking for opportunities online. And, you always make the correlation that it's odd that you got all these sort of boo birds on social, but then in real life, nobody comes over and says anything negative at all. And not because you're Billy Badass, just not the nature of the world we live in now. So it's unfortunate. I understood when you said it, that you were clearly just looking for a little tongue-in-cheek humor, and for whatever reason, not everybody was very receptive to that.
And then I got put my nuts in a vice over we made a T-shirt. How dare you? How dare you make a T-shirt? It's not fair. It's not right for Seth and Becky. Okay, I'll get them a wedding gift. All right, chill out. It's ironic that I have a great rapport with Becky Lynch, and I have great respect for her, and I have great respect for Seth Rollins. My point was, folks, here's the deal. When those of us, and I put myself in the same kettle of fish, I got no business getting pissed off about somebody calling my company AEW a minor league. Let them go. Let them say what the hell they want and ignore them. That's what I should be doing. But I care enough about the business when I see a star who's a very talented star, who is in a position of leadership and influence within the annals of sports entertainment in today's market, say things like that. We all that have any influence on the wrestling fans, any influence on our business, should be spreading good words and promoting our overall wrestling business. That'd be like me going and saying, yeah, how about that studio show those guys are doing, that NWA deal? It ain't really the NWA. Sam Muschie's been dead for 50 years or whatever. Well, that'd be bullshit. I hope that the NWA and Billy Corgan and all his group do phenomenal. Why wouldn't I? Even Court Bauer, the miniature Vince McMahon of the East. I hope he does well with MLW. He's got some good talents. It gives people in my work, in our world, Conrad, a job. It provides income for families. And so you're not going to hear me talking negative about, I may have some fun, tongue-in-cheek stuff, but to go on a tirade and go crazy about another wrestling company and hope that they fail or call them a less than advantageous or positive name ain't going to happen. So for those of you that I offended with my opinion, I apologize. I just believe that we have to, as a wrestling community, and if you're listening to my show, I guarantee you're not listening to the show for financial advice or medical advice or any of the other advices that people give on podcasts. You're listening to us for some entertainment, some educated opinion, and that's it. Not to change the world. So we're going to continue to have fun here. And when I get pissed off, I'm going to share that. And I may get pissed off today because we're talking about a card that's pissed offable. And
That's a great word. I like you just freestyled that. Piss offable. I like it.
Yeah, piss offable. And Halloween Havoc 89. I watched the show again for the first time since 1989, and cringed at my own work part time. You know, I was I don't know if I was smoking then. Since I started smoking way back in the day, my voice got a little deeper, and of course that Crown Royal helps a little bit deepen the voice. I was irritated with my own voice. But here's what I loved. I love working with Bob Caudle. I said it so many times, how much I love Bob Caudle as a man. He's the finest man that I ever worked with. Is he the greatest broadcaster? That's subjective. To me, he never failed. He's so reliable. If Bob was a baseball player, you could bet your ass he's gonna get on base every time. So I love that part of it. And I look back, and both of us have the same basic opinion, I think, of the show. But my opinion, Conrad, is that if you look at the lineup of talents that were booked, it's like an all-star game.
No, it really is.
Well, Flair, Terry, Funk, Muta, Sting in the main event, Gary Hart, Ole Anderson, both at ringside. That's not a bad grouping of people, accomplished people, talented people. And that's not all. But we have some things we're trying to get over. But the rock and hard spot there was what we've tried to do to be more WWF-like, when nobody on our team, on our booking committee, wanted to do that. We want to create, what we all believe philosophically was the right way to go, and we had the people on the booking committee to do that. Kevin Sullivan and Jim Cornette, who doesn't like AEW, by the way, if you notice. But you think Cornette and I have been friends for 30 years. Sometimes I just shake my head and giggle, chuckle. I guess fat guys chuckle. Conrad, we chuckle, right?
Oh, sure, absolutely. We're jolly, like Santa.
We are jolly bastards. So I'm a jolly bastard. I don't mind that. Call me a jolly bastard next time you see me in the airport. I'll be happy to hug you. So I'm just but we were forced by Jim Herd because he didn't know another way to go, and people have this innate desire to change things that aren't broken. It's ego. It's the fear. It's the fear of the unknown. So we shit the bed on many occasions on getting ready for the show with all the stuff. But I'm glad. Every experience I've had, I wouldn't trade for the world. I wish the show had been better, but there are some elements of the show that I thought was kind of cool. But the getting there was a giant. It's like traveling in a car on a family vacation and having to stop and pee every 30 miles. It becomes insanity. To start from home and try to get to where your destination is a shits, no pun intended. And that's exactly what we had there, that thing. It was hard because none of us felt that show. None of us felt this is what we're going to do. This is going to be cool. It wasn't like the Bash. It wasn't like the Starrcade. It was a gimmick show to emulate WWF and their cartoon approach at that time with some of their characters. And we failed at it.
Well, let's talk about it, because this is the very first Halloween Havoc, and both Tony Schiavone and Eric Bischoff have agreed that this would become the marquee show. Of course, in the days of Jim Crockett Promotions, it was all about Starrcade. That was the granddaddy of them all. But the marquee WCW event was going to wind up being Halloween Havoc. This, of course, is a far cry from that. This is the very first one back in 1989. It went down on October 28th. So just a couple of days ago was the 30-year anniversary in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You've got 7,300 paying fans. That's a total of $104,234 at the gate, and a 1.77 pay-per-view buy rate. So it is financially successful. And this Philadelphia crowd, I mean, they are some of the most rabid, rowdy fans of all. They love their wrestling. They're smart fans. And man, that's never more apparent than in a handful of these matches where they're not just booing the bad guys and cheering the good guys. Sometimes they just appreciate wrestling talent. Let's talk about the actual name Halloween Havoc, though. You sort of insinuated that maybe this was Jim Herd trying to emulate what he had seen with the WWF and their more cartoonish presentation. But I did like the name Halloween Havoc In this era, for whatever reason, Dusty Rhodes was credited with creating a lot of the names, whether it was Bunkhouse Stampede or the Great American Bash or Starrcade. Was Halloween Havoc a Dusty name, or was that a Jim Herd name, as best you remember?
I don't know. I don't know where Dusty's status was at that point in time, Conrad. I know I consulted with Dave Meltzer this morning, early for him, and he recalls that it was booked by Cornette and Sullivan, which doesn't mean they're getting the big check mark, the bad mark for creating something that wasn't good. I mean, we all had a hand in it. There are a lot of cooks in that kitchen. They just kind of we were some of us are sous chefs and some were cooking the entrees, and that's what they were doing at that time.
Well, to be clear, I know for sure Dusty was in the WWF. I guess what I was freestyling was this a Dusty leftover? You know, like
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think it was a new idea after Dusty had left. New idea, had nothing to do with Dusty, yay, nay, or indifferent. And when we were backed into a creative corner that this is what they wanted, and we had to have a hook, and that the cage was the hook, and the guys in the cage was obviously significant, as always. At least we had a finish. It might not have been a good one, but it wasn't a DQ in that structure. But nonetheless, I digress. I think, like I said, I think Cornette and Sullivan were the main cooks. And look, I've not worked around two guys smarter, more strategic, with a better feel for the wrestling business than Kevin Sullivan and Jim Cornette. 1989, they were, as they are now, two very bright guys as far as the wrestling business is concerned. It was a bad concept, and then they wanted all this. The cage thing was such a gimmick, and it's not what we do and what we did, and it was just not a good fit. We were a corporate pawn, and we did what we were told to do. That's kind of how it worked out.
Well, this is back in the days when you guys don't have a pay-per-view every single month, just a handful every year. Starrcade, of course, is going to be the next big one. I mean, if you're looking at just a calendar and trying to decide where you could slot in another one, October does seem to make sense. Let's talk a little bit about the process of starting a new pay-per-view. What goes on behind the scenes inside of a company with regard to the way, TV changes, and now you've got to get some promos done, and obviously booking a venue. Some of that stuff is sort of elementary, but when you're launching in the late 80s now, a new pay-per-view venture, this has to feel like something that is going to be all hands on deck, because you want to make sure these new creations are successful. You don't want another Bunkhouse Stampede situation that you had a year prior.
Mm-hmm. You're right about that. Didn't have any issue with it being placed in October. I thought that was kind of good positioning. Honestly, I think that you give a lot of people, when you have a brand new concept, you give a lot of people the opportunity to get involved in areas of expertise that they are not expert in, if that makes any sense. It got like Turner Home Entertainment. There had a lot of fanboys in that Turner Home Entertainment at that time, and they had a new toy. They owned the team, so they thought they could call all the plays, and they could, but we're going to lose our ass. We're going to lose the games, and we weren't near. We were underachieving in that era with the talent that we had. It was terrible. If we had just been able to book the talents, in other words, put all the players in an offense that we could score with, this thing would have been a whole lot different story as history has been told over the years. But that did not happen, and so you got to go through all that stuff with the underlying input and color schemes, the theme, the music, the promos, producing promos. I mean, when we were there was a lady there named Sharon Sadello that spent massive monies on promos. I mean, I heard a number one time, and I thought somebody, "Oh, you're bullshitting me. We can't be that stupid." Well, we're making movies. No, hell, we ain't making movies. We're doing pro wrestling. Don't bullshit yourself. Can we not just be comfortable that we're in the goddamn pro wrestling business and we're not making movies? Horse shit making movies, my fat Oklahoma dimpled ass. We are doing pro wrestling, episodic, reality-based television, and that's where we should have been. And we got taken out of that era. But all that stuff goes into play. Like I said, the promos, the color schemes, the whole 9 yards, and then of course the key element for me, I think most fans would agree, is a card. It doesn't matter all the sizzle if the steak ain't worth a shit. I don't care about eating the green beans. I'll just not eat this T-bone right now. I'll just have my couscous. Can you imagine JR eating couscous?
No.
What the hell? What are we thinking here? So anyway, that's kind of how I look at it, Conrad. We had a lot of cooks in the kitchen. We had a booking committee that had a lot of different opinions, but the guys in the booking committee actually knew the business. They actually had product knowledge. And when you start something brand new like that, sometimes you get into a situation where guys that don't have product knowledge are challenged. So I said the same thing to my buddies at AEW, that we're having a great time doing those one-offs. Fight for the Fallen and a pay-per-view here and a pay-per-view there. Baby, the world changes when you're leaving the house every single week. How many people do you believe that have left the house every single week to go to work? Probably less than you think. So that's another adjustment that you got to make when you start a brand new company. You got to adjust to the travel, adjust to this and that. So we didn't adjust well in the early goings there. It was like when Crockett went belly up and Turner bought him out, some of the guys on the inside who were fans, you see it the TV tapings and things, but now they had a chance to get in the locker room. They had a chance to be in the team meetings, and that was probably not the best idea that we could have blessed at that time.
Let's keep it moving here. I'm sure there's plenty to talk about with Sharon Sadello, but what I would rather talk about is Bruno Sammartino. He's going to come in and be the referee in the main event of Halloween Havoc. And this is a coup, man. This is the era where Bruno Sammartino is on, a bit of a circuit bashing Vince McMahon and the WWF, whether it's Donahue or any of the other daytime or nighttime talk shows that will have him. The WWF is going to have some controversy here or there. And anytime those scandals pop up, it seems like Bruno is always there, to just heap on and pile on. And now you're in the Northeast, where he was obviously a very big drawing card for decades. And now for the first time in a long time, you see Bruno involved with wrestling and there's no WWF attached. What are your memories of how this came to be? Whose idea was it? How the deal was structured? Just any sort of Bruno details you can recall here.
Well, first of all, the reason that the media went to Bruno for these WWE calamities was because in the major market, New York City, he had amazing name identity. There was not a more recognized name within the annals of a certain demographic of the WWF and newer than Bruno. And he was always as he was in real life, he was honest to a fault sometimes. So it'd be like having a baseball scandal and bringing in Babe Ruth to talk about the baseball scandal. He was an expert. He played the game. He was there. He got a great feel for it. And Bruno's lifestyle, the way he lived his life, was diametrically opposed to the way the WWF was being managed at that point in time. So I think it was a coup, and I think Jim Herd had a lot to do with getting it done. I'm sure there was somebody, a go-between somewhere along the way. It wasn't me. I never met Bruno until that point in time. But I loved him when I did meet him, because he was such a nice man. And I miss him still. I wish he was around, because he would have been a great guy to call around and say, "Hey, Bruno, this damn internet's killing me. And what do you think? I should just shut up and move on, or whatever." Sometimes you need a guy like that in your life to be your guiding light. And of course the cowboy, called him. He just wants to go fight everybody. So that's not my deal. So Bruno was just. He had name identity. He was a superstar. He had not had any association with WWF in years and years. Arguably the biggest star they ever had, especially on the East Coast. And I'm not shitting on Hogan or Austin or anybody, but at that time Bruno was a god. He still is a wrestling god. And I had to think. I thought about him a lot last week when we were in Pittsburgh. So that was the deal. He was, as the old timers say, Conrad, Bruno was box office, and we got a lot of publicity and a lot of chatter with Bruno being on the card as the referee and wearing a referee shirt, and he looked like a referee. He didn't have the sleeves cut out. He didn't wear a gimmicked up to where it's just about them, that character, and not about the position that you represent as an official. But you're in a position to where you fit into your role, and he had no problem doing that. So his ego was intact. Was Bruno the best referee? I'll tell you something, Conrad. I think one of the worst gimmicks in all of pro wrestling, booking wise, is to have a celebrity referee that don't know come here from Sikkim about being official. That would include the boxers of the world. We've had Joe Louis, all those guys. Marciano was a referee. And look, it's great if you get a payday. The boys got to work, but they don't do a great job in the ring because they don't know how. Kaninsky was a wrestler. Gene Kaninsky, a great wrestler, NWA champion. He called one of the Flair Hardy matches. Kind of sucked. Wrong place, wrong. They had the best referee in the world, Tommy Young, but Tommy should. I just don't think I think it's a bad marriage. So Bruno was put into a tough role. He did the best he could with it, and we got a lot of mileage out of it. And that one time he did something physical, the damn crowd went ape shit big time.
Let's talk a little bit about the other idea that was presented. Apparently, Jim Hurt asked Bruno to come in as a color commentator, but Bruno declined the offer because he didn't want to travel. And that's in your wheelhouse, man. Commentary. Did you ever hear that Bruno was offered the opportunity to do commentary?
Sure. Yeah. Hurt talked to me about it. I'm talking to Bruno, so he wants to do some TV with us, but then I was just doing some TV. So I thought maybe they were working a deal out where Bruno would come in and just do the pay-per-views. Third man in the boot type deal. But they want him on a weekly basis, and he wasn't, as you just reiterated, he wasn't prepared to travel on a weekly basis. Don't blame me for that. But that would not have bothered me. The thing about here, I was sold on Bruno before I ever met him, but thanks to the Cowboy. And of course, I learned so much from Watts, good things and bad things, folks. I get it. Bill had some wonderful attributes, and he had some that weren't so wonderful, but he was my guy, and he helped me a lot. He got me. I would not be where I am today had not been for the Cowboy teaching me the ropes and being my mentor. Well, Watts said when he went to New York, his third year in the business, Wild Red Berry got Cowboy booked in the Garden for Vince McMahon Sr. Booked in New York, and the one guy that gravitated to him and said he wanted to work with him was Bruno. So to have Bruno go to the bosses and say, I want to work this big kid, 300-pounder, 6'3", out of Oklahoma, can wrestle, smart guy. So Bill sold me on Bruno for being that loyal guy. So to do it right, he became Bruno's tag team partner, he being Cowboy. So I heard all the Bruno stories on these road trips Watts and I would go on. So he was, quote unquote, over in my mind before I ever met him. And they say you never meet your heroes or whatever. That may be true in some situations, but it was not true with Bruno. He was everything he was billed to be and more. And so, if I was going to work with him on a weekly basis, I'd have made it work as best I could. So it just didn't come about because of the travel, but it was the fact that Herd was trying to pop on the WWE influence, the big WWE black cloud always hovering over Atlanta and CNN Center, and that we had to always react. And it was just bullshit. Just play your game, man. Just play your game and get better for your team and move on, and don't worry about what everybody else does. It's what you learn early in wrestling. Don't worry about the shit you can't affect, and we can't affect how WWF at that time was being booked.
Well, if you want to book the territory and play your game, then you need a copy of the new WWE 2K20. You'll enjoy over 35% in savings on the deluxe edition, which includes the WWE 2K20 originals, including the pre-order bonus pack Bump in the Night, which features the brand new character, The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, and the SmackDown 20th anniversary digital content with Hulk Hogan, China, the $500 shirt version of The Rock and Sock Connection version of Mankind, and you get the 2K20 Accelerator and the 2K20 My Player Kickstart. Now, with the new showcase, you'll relive the groundbreaking journey of the Four Horsewomen and the women's evolution, all the way from their start in NXT to 2019 when they finally headlined WrestleMania for the first time in history. Of course, you'll hear from the cover superstar Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Bayley, and Sasha Banks is there. They're all describing their journey to bring women's wrestling to the forefront of WWE in their own words and with exclusive live action footage. Now, how about this? With My Career, for the first time ever, you can play as both a female and a male character. You can unlock WWE Legends, original characters, and these really cool, unique environments as you make your way from the indies all the way to the WWE Hall of Fame. My Career is fully voiced, featuring performances by over 40 WWE and NXT superstars, the Legends, making this the best My Career experience yet. I mean, you got Legends voices in there too. Come on. Roman's reign is the part of 2K Towers this year. What they're doing is shining a spotlight on Roman Reigns, where you have the opportunity to follow the big dog through his early days in the company. Yes, all the way back to the Shield, the good old days, to the more recent rivalries with Brock Lesnar, John Cena, The Undertaker, and more. And overall, players will compete in 16 different matches and live out all the key chapters in Reigns' impressive mark in WWE history, all while claiming championships and igniting the WWE universe along the way. Every match includes a live introduction from the big dog himself and exclusive never before seen footage. And all told, the roster is loaded. More than 180 of your favorite superstars, legends, Hall of Famers, NXT talent, and never before seen characters you've just got to see to believe. You can play as all the great superstars of today: Samoa Joe, Seth Rollins, Braun Strowman, Brock Lesnar, you get the picture, or the Legends, Andre the Giant, Roddy Piper, Sting, and so many more. It's available now for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. And I don't know that you saw, Jim, but recently some fans have found some glitches or bugs in the game, and they couldn't wait to release a statement that came out last week saying that they're going to have all those patched very quickly. I know this game is a priority to WWE and 2K, and they're working hard to make sure that fans at home get the best possible version of the game, including a new patch with a lot of these fixes that maybe fans have found the first go around.
I could tell you that the relationship between 2K and WWE is a very healthy one. And the great thing about it is that my friend Bryce Shang and the team out there at 2K, they have continued to look for ways to improve the game, new concepts, new ideas. And so I was always proud to be a part of that process back in the day. And I know this: if fans are listening by the game, you're going to help some of your favorite wrestlers make more money. And to me, that's kind of where I am in my life right now. Us against them, but how can we all help enrich the lives of everybody that's in wrestling? Well, here's one way you can do it. So I wish them the very best of luck on that game. It's the most popular gift. One of the most popular gifts I give fans or friends, family at the holidays. And some of them now are expecting a 2K game every year. And I can't really afford it, but nonetheless, I'm trying. I'm kidding.
I love you for that. Well, listen, check it out. Anywhere you enjoy games, they've got it. Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PC. Go check out WWE 2K20. And I know fans are having a lot of fun designing characters in there. I bet there's a couple of custom JRs, and maybe you could even do a fantasy booking JR, and maybe a custom Conrad. We could do like a tag team and we could maybe take on Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. What do you think?
I would love that. As long as you could, it's only you and Seth, because Becky I know wouldn't hurt me, even though she could. I'm kidding. Hey, but here's the deal on these 2K reads. You got to get that big dog down, that line down. The big dog.
Oh yeah, sorry.
See, that's Vince telling Cole how to say big dog, and it's driving people away because it's obnoxious, it's unrealistic. And the other thing is, and I got called on this deal this week. I said, well, Becky Lynch, she sent me a tweet, and I said she's the most over person in the company. I believe that right now. She is, I think. I have an opinion. I'm sorry. And then I got my ass chewed out because they said, well, you're so old and disconnected and unaware, JR. You should just hang up your black hat. Yeah, okay. I ain't when I got nothing. But a shingle do more work. Becky, they're yelling at me because they said that Bray Wyatt's character is the most over character in WWE. Okay. I'm not going to argue that. He may be to you. But I do think this conclusively. If everybody thinks Bray Wyatt's this great heel, you better figure that out again because he ain't going to be no heel. He's going to sell tons of merchandise here at Halloween. Probably already has, I would hope. He better have because it's kind of history. It's going to be history soon. So I'm thinking he's going to be a baby face. He's going to be what the old timers would call a character baby face. And so what's a great example of a character baby face? The Undertaker is a great example of a character baby face. And that's not a bad thing. I don't mean it's failing or anything. It's just he's so cool and the gimmick is so new and fresh, even though it's a wrestler wearing a mask. Let's think about that one. I think he's going to be a big-ass baby face. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You can't have too many over baby faces.
Let's keep it moving. Let's talk about somebody who I know was over with you. Elvira did some commercials for Halloween Havoc leading up to the event. Did you have any interaction with Elvira? Would this have been a Sharon Sadello thing? What do you remember about Elvira?
Well, look, back on Sharon Sadello, she was a very bright lady, attractive, but here's all I need to tell you about Sharon Sadello. She fell in love with Ole and they lived together. That's hard to envision. I'm trying to erase my memory right now. Elvira was a hell of a nice lady. And man, she was very, she had her I'm trying to think how I can say this without being a total turd and a sexist. She had great cleavage.
She had big cans, Jim. She had big cans.
Big ones, big old good ones. There's only two kinds of cans: big old good ones and good old big ones. I know that. And
I think there was a thing back in the day. Tig old bitties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was very nice to work with. I was around when she did some promos. You know, she was very nice to work with. She was very appreciative of the work, and a nice lady. So, and quite frankly, she was involved in Halloween Havoc was a real timely casting. That's what she was known for, Halloween and, scary movies and things of that nature. So, I enjoyed being around her in that regard, but I obviously wasn't around her as much as I would have liked to have been, but thank God there was no Blue Chew then. Whew.
Oh my gosh. I love you for that.
I've probably been in jail.
Let's recap something else that's happening here. At the end of September, on our march to Halloween Havoc, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard give their notice and they drop the belts that very night and they're on a plane to the WWF the following day. We've talked about this recently on Arn Anderson's new podcast right here on Westwood One. Just look for the word Arn, A-R-N, anywhere you enjoy podcasts and you'll find it there. That's the name of the podcast, Arn. But chat me up. When Arn and Tully leave, do you feel like, oh no, this is a real chink in the armor from a Jim Crockett promotion standpoint?
Hell yeah. You lose two talents as good as arguably they're the best tag team in the business at that time. Cornette would say, God damn, it's Midnight Express, you son of a bitch. And I'm not going to argue that point either. Midnight Express is as good as I ever saw, but that also good as I ever saw comment would include Arn and Tully. And I just thought they were phenomenal. And yeah, losing star players like that is, that'd be like, Patriots losing Brady or somebody. And it's don't look good. So he was, they're phenomenal. And it hurt. And they're good. They're great in the locker room. They're good leaders. Arn's great sense of humor, and Tully was Tully. And both of them had a lot of street smarts and wrestling savvy. They could help others if if others would come to them and ask. It hurt. It was not good. It was very upsetting, and it made you think, oh my God, could this be the beginning of the end? We're losing two of our stalwarts. We're losing the middle of our lineup. And what are we going to do about it? Well, you got to make new stars. But here's the thing, folks. That's easy to say. You just can't replicate personality, charisma, reliability, and athleticism by waving your magic wand. And that's what we never replaced Arn and Tully in that world down there at that time. Never.
Let's mention that, on the way here, there's a Clash of the Champions. It's Clash 8 and they're calling it Fall Brawl 89. Of course, we know Fall Brawl is going to become a pay-per-view in about 4 years. But this one goes down on September 12th. It does a 4.7 rating, which means roughly 2.4 million homes are watching, about 5.3 million viewers. It's an interesting card. We've recently covered this with some of our podcasts, but the main event is Flair and Sting on one side, Dick Slater and Great Muta on the other. Of course, this was originally supposed to be Flair and Sting versus Terry Funk and Great Muta, but Funk has sent in a video saying that he's not allowed to compete. He's in a hospital. He won't be able to make it. So they name Dick Slater as the replacement. Of course, as you might imagine, Terry Funk comes out of the hospital just for this angle and puts a plastic bag over Ric Flair's head and tries to suffocate him. And at the same time, Slater's hitting Sting's ankle several times with a branding iron, and the faces are both going to be left laying and out. They got 4.25 stars based on the Wrestling Observer after 19 minutes and 16 seconds. As you can imagine, Flair and Sting get the win, but by a DQ. But I'm mentioning all of this because this suffocation angle, boy, this was a hot topic, was it not?
Yeah, it made us look bad. It made the wrestling guys, all those damn wrestling people, they're at it again. Those goddamn gypsies, those carnies. Damn, how's that going to play at somebody's house with children? Cause Mommy, I know where those bags are. They're in the cabinet. So yeah, it's not good. It wasn't good. And look, if I'm sure that all involved had to do all over again, it would not have happened. There would have been a better idea to get heat from Terry onto Nate than a plastic bag. Ill conceived, and ain't nobody loves or respects Terry Funk any more than me. But that one just didn't hit the strike zone.
All right, Jim, we need to run a timeout right now and remind everybody that you and I are coming to Nashville and we're bringing Tony Schiavone with us. Yep. Supershowlive.com is where you can pick up your tickets. That's www.supershowlive.com. We're so excited to be there. We're at Zany's in Nashville, right up the road from where AEW is going to be. And last week, after teasing that I thought some AEW superstars may swing through, I had not one, but two, and actually maybe it was three. I need to check my phone again. Guys text me individually to say, hey, is it cool if I come by after the show in Nashville? Absolutely. So we've already got some AEW talent lined up. Now all we need to do is line you up to visit with JR and Tony Schiavone and myself. It's the first live super show we've done like this. It's a late night show. We're going to be on an adrenaline rush after a great show from AEW. You will be too. The Moscow Mules will be flowing. Pick up your tickets right now. Supershowlive.com. What do you think we might talk about that day?
We'll talk about the show that we just got through doing in Nashville. We'll talk about whatever's on the fans' mind. The great thing about it is our tickets are affordable. There's not a lot of folks because the venue's not that large. I've played Zany's there a couple of times. A great venue. I met Conrad there for the first time while I was eating some Hattie B's hot chicken. Had a great show with Jerry Lawler at one point in time. But Tony, Conrad, and JR together after an AEW show, folks, it's going to be so much damn fun. But we're going to be drinking some mules, and we're going to be taking your questions and telling you stories and just having a great time. Photo ops, autographs, sign your swag, whatever you want to do. It's going to be a fun time. And the three of us, the great thing about the three of us is why we all get along well and we enjoy working with each other is the fact that we all started out as fans. We still have that in common, and that inseparable bond that we wrestling fans, you listening and us doing the show, is absolutely unbreakable. It's special because we know how hard we've all fought for our own dignity and not to be fat shamed because we were a wrestling fan. Oh, you like that wrestling? I sure do. And the wrestling likes me. So we'll see you in Nashville after our show, and we're going to have a great time. Can't wait. Can't wait, Conrad. It's going to be a great. I love Nashville too. Nash Vegas. Hey, maybe Dixie Carter come by and say hello.
Yeah, you never know, man. I'm really looking forward to this. We hope you pick up your tickets. Check it out right now. Supershowlive.com. You'll be glad you did. Something I wanted to bring up here is a lawsuit that Dusty Rhodes is under. And I know at this point, Dusty's with the WWF, but this lawsuit that's going to get people in the business talking, because a wrestler named Steve DiBlasio is suing because he was injured in the summer of '83 when the booker, Dusty Rhodes, told him to take a bump over the top rope for a DQ finish. And Steve said he'd never done that bump before, let alone over the top rope, and didn't want to do it. But Steve is going to allege that Dusty Rhodes threatened to sue him, or not sue him, but fire him if he didn't. So of course he does. And when he does it, at 450 pounds, the rope breaks. Steve crashes onto the floor, crushes both of his ankles, and he's looking for a payday here. Now, it's the reason this comes up is because we're really contesting now whether or not wrestling is scripted and choreographed. Now, Steve would write, the final outcome in all the matches is the two men in one-on-one competition. And of course, Dusty would say, pro wrestling matches are not choreographed, in his response. But then when he's at the trial under oath, he's forced to admit that it's quote unquote 100% show business. And he would compare the storylines and choreography to that of a soap opera. And also during the trial, Steve's attorney, Mike Napon, would ask whether or not the scars on Dusty's forehead were from purposely cutting himself with a razor blade to read during the matches. And Dusty's under oath, so he has to admit that this is the case. And they also discuss whether or not Rhodes had threatened to blackball Steve out of the business. And when they really pressed Dusty about why Steve DiBlasio did not make it further in the business, Dusty says, quote, he had no athletic ability, no charisma, which you have to have. He was as dry as a piece of bacon. I'm the most charismatic guy you've ever had sit in this room here. This is just the most Dusty testimony ever. What do you remember about this lawsuit and the sort of the fallout of them having to testify, sort of the nitty gritty details of professional wrestling under oath?
Oh, well, first of all, 83, I was happily employed by the big cowboy in Mid-South Wrestling. So I heard, you hear the rumor mill, like they say, telephone, telegraph, tell a wrestler. That's kind of what the era we were in, because there's no social media. It's people call, and then the stories would get embellished, because it's like telling fishing stories. The first liar ain't got a chance. So, but here, the advice I give anybody, if you, telling the truth is a real good habit to get into. It really is. More of us should try it. And I just thought that, when you go to especially in a trial, and you're as you pointed out, under oath, you got no alternative but to tell the truth. So tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God, or whatever however it goes. So that's all I can say. I would not have tried to cover. Dusty tried to protect the business, which is a very admirable thing. But for many, many years, more people knew that wrestling was a showbiz entity and a byproduct of vaudeville or a traveling show, or whatever the case may be, Broadway, whatever, than those of us wanted to admit. That's why everybody was always watched it when a heel signed autographs. If you lost a fight and watched his territory as a wrestler to a civilian, as he called him, a fan, he fired your ass on the spot, no matter who you were. He said, we can't have people believing that they can whip our stars. So if you get your ass whipped, you're out. So that was Watts' philosophy. I think they took it too far, obviously, but Dusty was merely trying to protect the business, because that's what he had been taught to do from day one. And he maintained that philosophy that he's taught to by all those old promoters in Texas, the Funks, Paul Bosch, then of course with Eddie Graham and Bill, all those guys. He was influenced by that. And then he influenced another generation of guys, the same mindset. So it's admirable that you want to keep the genie in the bottle, but to think nobody knows how to pull the cork is a misnomer.
In case you're wondering, ultimately, Steve DiBlasio would win on June 13th, 1983. He's going to be awarded $300 and some odd $1,000. in the verdict against Thornton, who was his opponent that night. But I guess the joke's on him because nobody knows where that guy is. Leslie Thornton was wrestling as the professional, but at this point he's somewhere in Canada and nobody's really heard from him in a long time. So I doubt he collected anything. But I wanted to bring it up because I don't know when we'll have a chance to talk about that lawsuit ever again. We should mention that Meltzer is starting to see, some cracks in the NWA. Even after Ted Turner has purchased it, he would write, "There's a lot that could be said about the current state of the NWA, but the emotion I keep hearing from those who follow the promotion is more and more one of frustration. A lot of the problems are nobody's fault. There are certain things like the hurricane last weekend, which destroyed the show in Richmond and forced the cancellation of Charlotte, that's out of everyone's hands. Perhaps if the NWA created better relations with its audience and been more honest over the last 2 years about no shows at the house shows, maybe the public would accept the occasional unforeseen and unavoidable problems such as the hurricane. Maybe not, but one would think so. Injuries are bound to happen with the style of wrestling being so hard hitting and the schedule having such few days of rest. That has to be accepted as part of the game if you're one who wants a rough style of wrestling. But over the last week, the NWA was plagued with no-shows once again. One from an injury, another from a wrestler who had a tree through his house from the hurricane, and another whose girlfriend was savagely attacked at an apartment burglary, and it goes on. The promotion can't be blamed for any of this, but the promotion continues to suffer negative consequences from all of it because it results in disappointed fans at house shows. Following the promotion on television this past weekend continued with this frustration. Some again, the promotion isn't responsible for all of this, but it still doesn't help them, and some of which they are responsible for and are not being held accountable. So the gist is no shows are rampant and fans are frustrated. And this starts to feel like a problem that we would hear in WCW a decade later. Who's to blame for this, in your opinion?
Well, the buck stops with the upper management. It's like saying, well, your favorite football team loses a big game. Who do you blame it on? Well, that's easy to me. You blame it on the head coach. He's the one that hired all these cats to coach them. He's the one that recruited these players to come in. If they don't, all of them don't deliver in their specific roles, then it's the guy that brought them in's fault. Accountability starts at the top. When all this started happening, I can tell you this: when I got to JCP in Charlotte, right after the buyout, I didn't see any difference in the way that Jimmy Crockett ran his company than Bill did, except Jimmy was a little bit kinder, but he was still firm and he still had a set of rules that were not going to be compromised. I never remember talents having no shows, like an epidemic type no show situation in Mid-South. You know, I've said the story here. We're doing TV in Shreveport, Irish Renewal Boys Club on the fairgrounds there in Shreveport. Brad Armstrong, the late great Brad Armstrong, was working with the late great Dr. Destiny Williams, and Doc was supposed to duck. He was green. He's supposed to duck a forearm from Brad. He didn't, and he saw it too late. Tried to duck, and the point of Brad's elbow caught Doc right above the eye, and the eye immediately swelled up. He's bleeding like a stuck pig, like he'd been shot. And then if they finish the match, he goes to the hospital, and they have to get an eye specialist there because the eye was so delicate. He got 107 stitches, no bullshit, not wrestle speak, 107 stitches. He comes back to TV looking for some sympathy from his head coach, and said, "Bill, what do you want me to do?" He said, "Well, what do you mean what I want you to do, Doc? You're booked tomorrow in Biloxi. I want you to get your ass in Biloxi and work." So Doc dropped his head. I was standing right there. He dropped his head, but he couldn't take himself to a place where, "Oh, Bill, I'm hurting. I'm sore. I don't think I should work." And he didn't say nothing. He played. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong scenario, but that was kind of how the lay of the land was, because at the end of the day, the booker's trying to get you to go to work because that's how he can pay you. If Doc had sat home and not been booked, even because of the injury that happened in Watchers Ring, Doc wasn't going to get any money. So it's a funny scenario, but when the no-shows became more and more prominent in WCW because there was very little done to address the matter from upper management to the talents and say, okay, this, if it's remotely possible for you to come to work, your ass better be at work. If not, well, we got major problems, and we're not going to be able to do business.
I bring this up because it does feel like that's something that Bill Watts is going to personally sort of sniff out in WCW. For better or worse, he changed a lot of things with guys being fined for being late and all that. I mean, he was definitely a different type of leader than Jim Herd. And I think maybe you're seeing some of that here as a result. Let's talk about the Power Hour. The reason I bring this up is they're plugging the wrong stuff on the shows on the way here. They're promising a Ric Flair press conference and Dan Spivey versus Dick Murdoch, an interview with Robin Green and Flair and Sting and a tag team match. None of it ever happens. So the miscommunication is more rampant than just what we're advertising on the house shows. It's TV as well. And this is a television company. Were there any sort of checks and balances in place, with the Turner people? Or are you guys just sort of left to your own devices to figure out what you want to put on the air?
I don't think we should blame any of the Turner people for this snafu. This is a deal where the booking committee, of which I was a part of, so I'm not casting stones, I'm not taking my share of the responsibility. That's not how I live my life. And then changes would be made. And here's how the changes would be made. They sit in our conference room, would book the card, whatever, book the matches, and then just book it like you would in a regular scenario. But because there was such little, respect, I think maybe, or confidence, maybe better said, in the booking committee, that the talents seem to always have some sort of automatic rejection. So in other words, if Rick didn't like the booking idea, it simply wasn't going to be done. There was very little compromise when he got in a certain mindset that he felt uncomfortable or that we were doing the wrong thing. We're doing the wrong thing. And by the way, we might have been doing the wrong thing. He might not have been wrong. How it was all handled sometimes was another matter entirely. So what you would have is you'd have the production people would get the card, and then it would change. And sometimes it would change with little or no notice, and or we get the TV. So okay, here's what we're doing. Well, wait a minute. Where's that Ric Flair? No, we're not doing that. Well, when do we know that? Well, Tuesday, but it just fell through the cracks. Don't worry about it. That was that glib bullshit. So it was we didn't have a captain, man. We didn't have a rudder in the water, and if you don't, you can't sail anywhere, man, without direction. No, directionless don't work. So that's what that was, Conrad. It was just a matter of talent. Sometimes didn't like the booking. And now here's what I always go back to. And I know people are going to pick up on this. More often than not 100% of the time, I'm not seeing it in AEW whatsoever at this point, when you have active performers involved in the screenwriting, the screenplays, the production, the booking, whatever you want to say, and whatever terms you want to use. It's pro wrestling, it's a booker. If it's sports entertainment, it's a producer. Same shit, folks. Don't get carried away here. And I think that there's infinite issues that sometimes have been around. Say a guy's a star wrestler and he's got someone on the booking committee that he had a run-in with 10 years ago. Those wounds don't heal easy for these cats. So I always thought, and I still do, that it's a very tenuous and sensitive situation when you have active participants making these creative decisions. The good thing about AEW is that our guys have titles, they have responsibilities, and they're being paid for this administrative work. Whereas I don't know that any of the guys on the booking committee got a lot of extra money for being on it. I sure as hell to get one dime, part of my deal. It's your job this week. So I think a lot of them are that way, but a lot of guys were happy to have a hand in the creative because they could protect their interest. And that offended some other guys that were on the outside looking in at the creative committee. It was a bad scenario. It was a system built to fail at that point in time in history in the late 80s.
It's really a struggle. You know, Meltzer's going to say that he doesn't want to speculate how much money that lost in their first year of ownership as they're approaching the 1 year anniversary. But he says there's lots of propaganda by competitors trying to lure the wrestlers away, who are trying to, you know, make people, I don't know, concerned about their future. Hey,
Sure.
we don't know how long they're going to stay in business. They're losing money left and right. You ought to jump ship. And Arn on our podcast has said that he wasn't sure that the company was going to stay in business himself. And that's, you know, this is a rough situation, to say the least. When you start to hear that, hey, television revenue's down, our house show business is struggling. And even when you watch the show, you would see the same ads over and over and over. Were you concerned at all that, hey man, I might be out of a fucking job here soon? Or did you have confidence that Turner was in it for the long term and that they were going to figure out a way to pull the nose up?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, when Arn and Tully left, it didn't make a lot of us, to quote one of my favorite Eagles songs, we did not have the peaceful, easy feeling that all was right. Because why would arguably one of the top one or two tag teams in the entire world who had made their home in that company, in the NWA brand, the WCW brand, why would they leave? And McMahon was not given big guarantees at that time. You know, you went in, which is a good formula, I think. You got guaranteed something, but not all you needed. And so that money was incentive to produce and perform and sell tickets or merch, whatever the case may be. So, yeah, it was uneasy, honestly, but that's not, the competitors want to create an uneasiness. They want to plant the negative within your locker room. And one way they can do that is to take some of your talent or to put their TV show on head to head against yours that you're trying to grow. So it was uneasy. Yeah, it was uneasy. But look, I had confidence in Ted. Ted's a hard-headed bastard. He loved wrestling. I used to sit in Ted's box at the Atlanta Fulton County Stadium for the Braves games, and he and I shoot the shit. We had a good relationship. He could never remember my name, so I was kind of humbling. He introduced me to Jane Fonda one time as, "This is my wrestling guy." Patted me on the back. And I want to say, yeah, hello, Mrs. I know what to call her, Mrs. Fonda, Miss Fonda, Mrs. Turner. And I said, "I'm Jim Ross. How are you, ma'am?" In this case, you need to that somewhere for something down the road. But yeah, in leadership, but we had the money, and I didn't think they would fold the tent in a year by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, it's obviously good enough that Arn and Tully, they're giving their notices to the WWF. They've been gone for a year, and they're coming back in, or trying to come back in. And I'm sure that's a story for another day, the whole debacle that was Tully Blanchard not getting an opportunity to come back. But let's keep it moving here and talk about some changes that they do want to make on TBS. Allegedly, there's a memo that comes out from TBS saying no more blood and no more heavy, unnecessary violence, which of course means the pay-per-view will not have these same restrictions, just on TV. And I think this is around the same time where you start saying parental discretion is advised on the pay-per-view shows. Are you starting to wonder, just how far they're going to push this? I mean, Dusty had gotten in trouble with this a year prior, and that's the reason he's in the WWF. But now here in 89, we're hearing more of it again. Hey guys, as a reminder, no more blood and tone down the violence. That sort of goes against what you came up with in the business. And now this is a new ballgame.
Well, it was, you can't go from feast to famine type thing. It's just, there's got to be some middle ground here. To have blood for blood's sake is a horrible, horrible idea. To have absolutely a band that there can never be ever any self-induced blood is also a bad idea. I never say never, but I think sometimes in the spirit of the presentation, in the spirit of the heartbeat of the booking, sometimes some blood is called for. Now, I can tell you that I thought still to this day that as good a match as I was been fortunate to call this year was Cody and Dustin back in Vegas at the pay-per-view. I thought, and I told him this, so it's not talking out of school. I said, hey, big boy, I think you got a little too much color, right? He said, yeah, I got a little carried away. The adrenaline, JR, adrenaline. I get it. He didn't do it to spite the system. He didn't do it to be, negative. He was excited, and he wanted to give the drama that it needed. And nobody can debate to me and convince me that blood in that match didn't, I don't want to say make it. It made it much more dramatic. And that's what those kids were shooting for. Drama. Big brother versus little brother. Finally coming to a head. They're walking down, the thoroughfare in Deadwood. Somebody's going to die, basically. So I had no issues with that, man. I just think it's got to be used smartly. And, unlike one match I was hyping for Cowboy, we had a 20-man first blood battle royal. That means that 19 of them are going to bleed, and one of them's not going to bleed is going to win. That's a little overkill in my view.
Let's talk about something that happened on the radio in this era, which I found a little interesting. Flair is doing a radio appearance for a radio station in Albany, New York, and he's allowing callers to call in and ask wrestling questions. And Meltzer would say that Flair came off really well, and the DJs plugging the show kept saying that Flair was the real world champion and how he'd beat Hogan like it was nothing, but Flair doesn't want to sort of mess up any opportunity to maybe work in New York. So he never comments on that. However, when one caller asked about a unification match, the DJ and Ric Flair assume the caller is talking about Hogan Flair, and Flair says he would love to have a match. But then the caller says, no, I meant with you and Jerry Lawler. And Flair is incredulous at this. He said that essentially he's upset anyone would even consider Lawler or his title comparable to Flair and his world championship. And he finished the tirade by saying, Jerry Lawler is a disgrace to professional wrestling. What do you think that's about here? I mean, this is not something where these guys have ever worked together like on this stage. I know that Flair did some shots in Memphis with Lawler, but it's not like this is going to be paid off in an NWA ring. Do you think Rick was taking it personal? Some of the stuff Lawler had said in Memphis on TV? Absolutely.
He wasn't set up for an angle or for another match. He was offended that Jerry would make some of his, Lawler's promos, from a promo standpoint, quality standpoint, I should say, it's hard to beat. And Lawler, just as a heel or babyface, and especially in Memphis, he was incredible. Not that he wasn't incredible in other places, but Memphis was that's where the throne was for the king, Memphis, Tennessee. So I think sometimes Jerry, because he had the autonomy, he didn't have a what do you call it? He didn't have nobody was venting him, or what do you call it? When he wasn't being filtered, I should say, filtered. No filter for the king in Memphis. And so sometimes when none of us have filters, that we kind of go into business for ourselves, and it's not always the right decision. I've done that myself on this show. So, but I think it was personal, and Rick took it personally, because quite honestly, if you really want to get down to brass tacks, those two guys are about as highly skilled as anybody I've been around in pro wrestling. And they have so much in common away from the ring, quite frankly, partying, enjoying the ladies, things of that nature. Even though Lawler doesn't drink, as his famous saying would be, lips that touch alcohol will never touch mine. That was the king. So I don't know. I just think it's personal. And because we weren't going anywhere with it, not that might have been the best match of the night, Lawler versus Flair, if it had ever come about, but it didn't come about on the national stage, but it came about several times in Memphis, and I'm sure that some of those promos leading into it were offensive to Nate.
Let's keep it moving here and talk about some behind the scenes. We got two more notes before we get to the actual show, Halloween Havoc. One is about the status of Eddie Gilbert, Missy Hyatt, and Paulie Dangerously. Meltzer would write that Gilbert and Missy are under contract through February, and since they're 6-figure deals, they're not going to walk out on them, even though Missy's last NWA appearance has already aired, and she won't be around at all. And at this point, Eddie's going to be used to put over the top guys on TV and work prelims at house shows. Dangerously, who was also under contract, apparently worked out a release with Jim Herd, but the WWF said they wouldn't make him an offer until they saw the NWA contract release because they were nervous about there being some sort of litigation.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I just find this interesting because I think all of these folks probably are going to land in the WWF, and that doesn't wind up happening for any of them. What do you remember being sort of the wrap on the status of this trio amongst the office and your brethren?
Well, I think that it seems to me my best recollection, the first time I ever spoke to Vince McMahon, I was working for Cowboy in Mid-South, and he wanted to hire Missy. He meaning Vince. And Cowboy had still not come around that beautiful women belonged in a locker room on a regular basis, and thought, you know, her worth was short-lived, but ironically, she was one of the most marketable people we had on the roster as far as appeal. And not sex appeal, yes, I get it. She's a very beautiful woman. But a phone call came in, and I said, Georgianne, our receptionist there, and Bixby says, Vince McMahon on the phone for you. And he said, give it to Jim. And I said, what do you mean tell her? Tell him. Whatever you want. Well, I got nothing for her here. So I said, well, then why don't we just let her go? She'd have another job. She's going to be out of work. We're not, doing anything, unscrupulous. And if he makes her a big star, people are going to remember where she came from. Well, you handle it. So, okay. So I go upstairs to my office and talk to Vince, and we had a nice little, chitty chat, obligatory banter. And then he said, I'd like to talk to you about obtaining the services of Missy Hyatt. And I said, well, we could probably make that happen. And so we worked out our deal, and I don't think it was any financial restitution or nothing like that. Just outdates, timing, TV appearances and things like that. He wanted to bring her in early so that they could shoot some vignettes. And I remember he was talking to me about putting her in there's some brand, Conrad, there's a dress, leather, there's a hot leather brand that made in California. I can't think of the name of it to save my soul. But Vince made Missy some of that leather, real slick leather, tight-fitting, cleavage showing dresses and things like that. She was going to have a Missy's Manor type thing or whatever. I don't know what happened to that deal. It farted in church and went on by the way. So that was how that worked. Bill just had run out of things he thought to do with Missy. So instead of adding other women that are also beautiful, and trying to keep that male demo a little bit happier on that era, he just threw his hands up. So then we had beautiful women there, and I'll tell you, some of the most emotional things we did then was Dark Journey and Missy Hyatt. For whatever reason, it got over, much like how the women have resonated in WWE to their audience, and how we are working to make the same thing happen in AEW. It's a big work in progress for us because we've had 4 shows. WWE has done a really nice job of cultivating that, and it's just a damn shame it's been 20 years too late. It should have been happening 20 years ago, is what I'm saying. It's not too late. But so that was the deal, man. Eddie and Bill, Eddie got caught Eddie went to New York as a favor to Vince Sr. from the Memphis territory, maybe Eddie's dad, I'm not sure, and was the pretty young baby face, handsome young kid. But now he's gotten a little older, and he had not got any bigger. And I think the size thing bit him in the ass, unfortunately, because Eddie Gilbert had a brilliant mind. He was a very underrated worker, no doubt about it. But he was never going to be 6'2" or 3. He was going to be 5'10" or whatever. And I think Cowboy saw that that's not his cup of tea right now.
Have you ever wondered why so many Americans are sick, unhealthy, and overweight? Between the food supply and a sedentary lifestyle, Americans are in the worst shape ever. And that's why the team of on-staff physicians of Brickhouse Nutrition created Field of Greens. Field of Greens is an easy way for you to add fruits and vegetables to your daily routine without spending hours in the produce section, hiring a home chef, or taking cheap supplements. Field of Greens is made with real USDA organic fruits and vegetables. It also helps boost your immunity using antioxidants and assists in digestive health with prebiotics and probiotics. It's like having a doctor and a nutritionist in your kitchen. One scoop delivers a full serving of fruits and vegetables. Just drop in a cup of water, stir, and you're done. It's also great for smoothies. The bottom line is this is real food, not extracts. You will look and feel better. Go to brickhousejr.com and get 15% off your first order just for trying it out with the promo code JR. That's brickhousejr.com and the promo code is JR. And Jim, you just got Field of Greens. I got to tell you, I was a little skeptical. I tried it out. I'm sleeping better. I'm liking it. It's easy and I can knock it out first thing in the morning. It's worked great at my house. We've been able to just make it part of our regular routine and we're already seeing the benefits. How about you?
I call it body maintenance. And with body maintenance through Field of Greens, I get mental some serenity because I know I'm doing the things I need to do to live longer. And, you know, you guys probably, I don't know how many older listeners we have out there with us. Everybody's welcome, as we know. But when you get to be 67 and you're looking at the fact that you are literally on the back nine of life, you want to do everything you can to extend your quality of life and live longer and enjoy more longer if you can. And I know that with Field of Greens, I got a better chance of getting that done. And the other part, Conrad, you mentioned, it's so convenient. You can knock it out first thing in the morning, and in 5 minutes you're done. You got your business taken care of. So I really think folks should be doing themselves a big favor in many areas, many arenas, by trying Field of Greens and then saving some money with our offer and our code.
Let's keep it going. brickhousejr.com. Use that promo code JR. You'll get 15% off your first order. Listen, the best way to support our show here, which is free for you every single Thursday morning, is to support our great sponsors. No better way to do that than to go to brickhousejr.com and use that promo code JR. Let's get to the show, man. Meltzer would recap this thing by saying Halloween Havoc was far from the worst pay-per-view event in history, but from a live perspective, the card came off like just another ordinary night of NWA wrestling. There wasn't the aura of specialness on the card. While the promotion put together the most creative batch of television commercials ever for a major show, the backbone of the NWA, which is the great wrestling action on the big shows, just wasn't there. And we get started with two very, very capable performers, the Z-Man and Mike Rotundo. They've got plenty of time to do the match here. 13 minutes, 23 seconds. Ultimately, Z-Man gets the win when he does a cross body block off the middle rope, and Zink reverses it for the pin. 3/4 of a star. Z-Man is, I guess, you know, the hot new hand in town. Mike Rotundo is, you know, he's going to have several different gimmicks that he's going to try out. I don't know that any ever really hit for him until he becomes IRS for Vince McMahon. This match to me, though, was just too long. I think that the crowd in Philadelphia agreed. You can even hear some boring chants. But Z-Man looks like $1 million, and I guess that's what Jim Herd was pushing at the time. What'd you think?
Yeah, the object of booking the match is to get Z-Man over in a positive way. I couldn't agree with you more about the match being too long. 13:23 of bell-to-bell times, too much for those two guys. It had nothing to do with their skill sets, folks. Mike Rotundo was just not over, and that was his fault. He wasn't booked well. Mike was better in an ensemble cast, in my view. Hence, the Mike Rotundo and $1 Million Man. I thought it was a great pairing. I thought Mike was at his best there. Not that IRS wasn't an interesting character. It was. I just thought Mike fit. The Varsity Club was a good example.
Sure.
That worked for me. And Mike was a great complimentary piece in that deal. But bottom line, you said it. Two guys that were not over, should not have been the first match, and they damn sure shouldn't have gone 13 and a half minutes.
Let's keep it moving. Talk about the next match here. We've got the Samoan SWAT team teaming up with the Samoan Savage. They're going to have Oliver Humperdinck with them, and they're going to call him the Big Kahuna. They're going to take on the Midnight Express and Dr. Death. The entrance is very, very creative for this. If you've never seen it, the Samoans are going to have these giant torches that they toss back and forth and do a little bit of a stage show. Pretty impressive. And then once they actually get down to the ring, they're doing a lot of stalling that comes off very believable, because you've essentially got 6 heels here who are about to get it on. And these are big, burly badasses. And they just tease this so often enough that it does have an air of realism, But again, I think the match probably goes a little too long, 18 minutes and 16 seconds. Bobby Eaton is particularly very, very impressive here. And of course, your boy, Dr. Death, looks like an absolute monster. This is probably peak for him. 2 3/4 of a star. Samoan SWAT team and the Samoan Savage get the win when Savage pins Lane. What'd you think of the way this one was booked, where Cornette is trying to interfere and accidentally bumps into Lane, and that tells a story onto its own?
It provided, Cornette's interference provided an out for his team that would allow the announcers, Bob Caudle and myself, to explain and give the narration. So nothing that hadn't been done a lot before, where managers cause it, they lost their team. Then you have the little faux argument at the end and all that stuff. Pretty traditional. That was not unusual. I thought that it did need to go 18 minutes to accomplish what they needed to. But I will say that if you watch this match, folks, and watch one guy in it, of course, you think I'm going to say Dr. Death, and I might say that on any other occasion, but Bobby Eaton in this match was especially amazing. Now I know they're going to have a big, I think it's in Knoxville, big thing for Bobby Eaton on December the 14th. I should get more information on that, Conrad, and maybe we can help him out a little bit with with something. Bobby's getting this kind of a fundraiser type deal. Unfortunately, I used to preach to the guys about saving their money and paying their taxes. I think most of them ignored me. And I think that's the promoters and administrators that don't push that. They don't push it because the talents are independent contractors, and they don't want they don't give anybody a leg to stand on that. Well, why aren't we employees? I don't have the answer to that, why they're not employees. It's all about the financial. It's a bottom line thing. But Bobby has had some hard luck. He's had some health issues. I love him. I think he's as good as I ever saw. Bobby Eaton reminded me a lot of Ray Stevens and Patterson to the basic same degree, in that everything seemed easy. Everything seemed natural. The timing was impeccable. So, but if you watch this, go check out Bobby's work and see where he was always at the right place at the right time to make sure that whomever he was in the ring with was going to get a shine. And he's just a spectacular human being and a worker. And hopefully, we'll tell you more about his celebration or whatever they're doing in December, because I'd like to go to that myself, quite frankly.
Well, what you're talking about is going down on December 14th at the D1 in Knoxville. It's on Hardin Valley Road, and it's called Bobby Eaton, A Night of Appreciation. You can pick up your tickets online in advance, but they're pretty excited about it. They've got a lot of folks coming in, and it's going to get kicked off at 8:00. So if you haven't already, set your calendar, December 14th, throw it in a Google machine, Bobby Eaton, Knoxville. You'll be able to pick up your tickets there, and or you can just look it up on Eventbrite, because I know they're using Eventbrite.
Help a good guy out. Maybe there's something you can do in this that without, if you can't, I can't get to Knoxville. Okay, maybe there's another way you can help them. So, but consider it. And Conrad got the info as always. He's ahead of the game. So, but I don't know how we got on that topic. I was talking about Bobby in this match, but he had a great night, and just one of so many that he had in his career. So many.
By the way, if you know Bobby, don't tell him. Actually, go to don'ttellbobby.com. They've got all the information there, but we can confirm for sure that you'll have Dennis Condrey and Tracy Smothers and Barbarian and Dr. Tom and Bill Dundee and Gary Michael Capetta and Ice Train. And, all the old greats are going to be there paying homage to one of the very best to ever do it. Tickets, they can't get much more affordable than this. They start at just $15 at don'ttellbobby.com, and 100% of the proceeds go directly to Bobby as a token of our appreciation for his contributions to our entertainment over the years.
Absolutely. Good job, Connie.
Let's keep it going. Let's talk about the next match. We got Tommy Rich and the Cuban Assassin. I can't believe it, but Thez Press gets the win in 8 minutes and 26 seconds for Tommy Rich. The boring chants start before the guys ever lock up. Philadelphia is not in the mood for this, and neither is Dave Meltzer. he gives it a dud. But man, you want to talk about some boo birds? They are out in full force for the Dynamic Dudes, who are out next, as the Freebirds are going to be defending their NWA tag team titles, trying to fend off the Dynamic Dudes. And believe it or not, Jim Cornette is advising the Dynamic Dudes. I think they're careful to say he's not managing them. He's just acting as an advisor, which is just remarkable. 11 minutes and 28 seconds. The dudes are booed out of the damn building. Michael Hayes is at his strutting and moonwalking best. 2.25 stars, or 2.5 stars rather. While Meltzer said that the crowd is into it, there's actually no heat for the match. And, it's a shame because Shane Douglas has an opportunity to be a much bigger star than what he's being presented to be here. And I know you're great, close personal friends with Johnny Ace, and I'm sure you were pulling for him here.
Yeah. Well, hey, again, I mentioned this earlier. I take full responsibility. I suggested the Dynamic Dudes. I was reading, one of the trending things at that time, and for the younger audience that we were instructed to try to find and capture and bring into the fold was skateboarding. Kind of like, it was a new fad. Was it going to work? And of course, we've seen it's become a huge industry. So Darby Allin, AEW, used to skateboard in his gimmick, and he's a skateboarder. I mean, it's a real deal. The irony of this, if you watch any of the Dynamic Dudes matches or presentation, you never saw two left-footed Johnny on the skateboard. He couldn't do it. So that's like one of those deals where you put somebody in a scaffold match that has a fear of height. Probably not the best logic you could utilize. So, we're trying to get two young guys. I always thought, and because I was running so much in the UWF when Eddie Gilbert was doing some booking out there, Eddie was really high on Shane Douglas, and so was Jim Barnett. We used to tell Jim Barnett in our meetings in Dallas that I said, Mr. Barnett, this is Shane Douglas, those blue eyes, that blonde hair, he is the next oh, no, God, he's beautiful. He's beautiful. I said, hey, Jim, just between you and I, the son of a bitch is hung like a horse. Oh, my God. He'd run down to the bathroom. I don't know what he did down there, but I didn't go follow him in for the rest of the story. But Shane was a good-looking kid, good athlete. I thought he did great things in the ECW. But the Freebirds had so much more charisma. It overshadowed and amplified the lack of charisma that the Dynamic Dudes had in that particular pairing. So just no chemistry, bad booking. So I raised my hand on that one, but it wasn't great, and there's nothing we could do to make it great. But I'm glad that Shane finally got to do some stuff on his own. It's really a matter of how you're used, what position do you play? So what the Freebirds showed everybody that night, they had more charisma in their pinky toe than some of the folks on the Dynamic Dudes team had in their whole body.
I just can't believe that this is a real thing. That Jim Herd named this team the Dynamic Dudes, and he put these two dudes on skateboards, and somehow you guys thought it would be cool to put Jim Cornette, a heel manager with a babyface team. This is just...
Hey, Cornette was on the booking committee. All he had to do was say no. And I'm not so sure part of that wasn't his idea, Conrad. Cornette had as much to say about that whole deal and this show as anybody on the booking committee. So if he had not wanted to do it, I'm sure that he would not have had to do it. But he may have a different story than that. That's fine. But it wasn't a Cornette against the world thing, but he was doing what he thought was going to help him work. We're trying to shine doo-doo, and that just don't work. So, yeah, Herd loved the Dynamic Dudes. He loved the skateboard thing. He loved the trendy stuff. All the young kids are going to love this. They're going to be he even said to me one time, they'll start bringing their skateboards to the arena. I said, where are they going to use them at? Where are they going to in section 3, seat 4? I don't get it. So, and I thought that the skateboard thing was not my idea. Putting Laurinaitis and Shane together was, but I didn't envision them at that time being a skateboard duo, especially when one of them could not skateboard.
Man, you want to talk about shining doo-doo. That's what they're trying to do with this Steiner brother promo that we see next. Lord bless him. Scott is trying his very best with a young Chris Cruz. Now, I guess we didn't mention this, but this is the debut of Chris Cruz in WCW, and he's doing his best, but you can tell he's super nervous, and it doesn't help when he's out there with two guys who are not completely comfortable doing promos yet. Steiner's going to go on to cut hellified promos as Big Papa Pump. That is not who we see on camera here. He's struggling in a major way. And then Rick tries to bring it home. Another major miss. One of the worst promos in the history of wrestling. We're going to play it for you here on the show. And poor Chris Cruz, he was in a bad spot. Before we talk about the shitty promo, talk to us a little bit about Chris Cruz, how he got into the fold here, because it's a name that we're going to see for the rest of WCW, but we don't really hear from much more in the wrestling space.
Well, he's all over Facebook because I follow him on Facebook, Chris Cruz. He's on this little campaign of exposing bad pro wrestling ads, like posters and things like that are going on right now. I don't know if he's helping those companies or hurting them, but he's a critic in that regard, and a lot of satirical, kind of a little stiff remarks. He was not that way at that time, but he had such a beautiful and amazing voice. And he was just right sized to be an interviewer. That was in his favor. So he was a short guy with big pipes. And that's a nice ingredient to start your foundation of being a pro wrestling interviewer. He became great friends with Funk, and they traveled together a lot. And I think that helped him because he could learn about the business. And I see Chris as, like I said, he's all over Facebook. I think he's living in Virginia. I think he does radio now. But why not? He's got the voice of God. So, but he's a smart guy. And we traveled some together, and the announcers would hook up in the car and go to our TV tapings and things. So I never had any issues with Chris. He's told somebody in a post-career interview when we were all gone that I had this big thing about Dick Enberg. And I think I saw the title of the article said, JR's got a big thing about Dick Enberg. I'm like, okay, what now what? And I remember the conversation we had about that. I said, Chris, one of the key elements of our business, of what we do, how we dress, is consistently dressing neat, having your clothes fit, have your cuffs tailored, and making sure you have a great tie. Great tie, not an average tie, not a great tie. I said, Dick Enberg wears the best ties on television, and he did. These great bold stripes and things that should have shot well, and I got on that kick. But he thought I was a mark for Dick Enberg and not a mark for Dick Enberg's ties. The one thing we clarified, I was not a mark for Dick.
Well, we know that to not be true now because you love a big hard dick thanks to Blue Chew, but they're not a sponsor this week, so keep it moving.
What?
I know we gotta shake some cages over at Westwood. That was a perfect opportunity.
In just a few minutes, the world will see Doom. Of course, the Steiners will see them inside the ring. My question to you, Scott Steiner, is how are you going to fight a team you have never seen before?
We have no strategy. We need no strategy. Tonight is a total reckless abandon. That's when you're playing our game. Because when there's no rules, no anything, you're in our ball game. You're playing our game. That's the way we like it. Yeah, we got Doom. That's a good name for those guys, Doom, because when we get done with them, it's going to be finished. We like a good fight. Who cares what happens? Who cares what happens in the match? As long as we get in, you get to fight, you get to beat up somebody, just do what you got to do.
Rick Steiner, many voices thinking that woman will be able to distract you and cause your defeat.
No, she did it to me one time. If I get her a chance to get in there, I'm going to take her and get it to
All
her.
right, fans, back now to the ring live in Philadelphia.
Let's talk about Doom. In the promo that you just heard, it's the absolute drizzling shits from the Steiner brothers. And they're referencing the fact that they're wrestling two guys they've never seen and they don't know who they are. Here's the backstory. Leading into this match, Robin Green is a woman who is a fan of Rick Steiner and eventually becomes his girlfriend. And then she turns heel and brings in Doom to take out the Steiners. In the weeks leading to this match, at an angle on TV, woman has lured Scott into a limo, and all of a sudden we see Scott get dumped out of the limo and boots are put to him. the cameraman never pans up, so we never get to see exactly who it is, but eventually we're going to learn it's Kevin Sullivan and Doom. Doom come to the ring, not only wearing hoods, but they've got capes on as well. Quite the presentation. Woman is strutting here, and she's looking like she's ready for the prom. It's quite the match. I love these guys, all four of them. Doom under the hoods to me are just, I don't know, an unbeatable tag team. And I was such a fan of the Steiners as a kid, but the violence is so big inside the ring that a fight actually breaks out in the crowd. And,
that's a killer, man. You
can see all the heads turn where everybody is looking at the action in the crowd instead of in the ring, but it didn't distract me from enjoying the match. 2.25 stars is what Meltzer gave it. 15 minutes and 26 seconds. Doom gets the win when Reed gets a foreign object from Woman and puts it into his mask and then nails the headbutt on the Steiners. Boom, gets the pin. I like the booking. I like the pairing. And, I don't know, just four badass dudes. You're going to be hard pressed to find four badasses like this in a ring anytime soon.
No, you're right, man. Four real men. Ricky and Scott, you know, again, I'd known these kids as they started because they were Vern Gagne sent, those guys to Cowboy and Cowboy loved them. He loved them. Because they're tough guys and they weren't going to lose any bar fights. And Nancy, God bless her soul, was such a sweetheart. And Nancy had good timing. Nancy understood the business, and she was married to Kevin Sullivan at that time, which didn't hurt her as far as getting in the creative loop and getting booked, so to speak. So I with you, Conrad. I loved it. I loved Doom. I loved they just looked like the perfect heel tag team. Had nothing to do with their race whatsoever. But big, thick, strong, athletic, and you could tell the legitimacy of a lot of guys. And you could not see through and see past those four in the ring. They were men. They were aggressive, physical, big athletes that was just a booker's dream. I thought the finish was good. It didn't kill anybody. It showed the heels cheated to win. Woman was somebody to be reckoned with. I don't know if you remember or not. You remember the vignettes that I did with Rick Steiner when he's going to meet Robin Green?
I do.
Yeah, where that one camera shot is our face. We both were kind of mesmerized. We're both a little Jethro Bodine-ish. I love doing those. And Scott's both those, Rick and Scott, both are very smart guys. They're better. I think they're the example I would give you. They're better individual talkers than they are tag team talkers. They just, as evidenced by what you said, Scotty became a hell of a promo guy's Big Papa Pump. He found a character that he could identify with, whereas as a tag guy, being himself, he didn't do it as well. Nothing was better than Big Papa Pump with his talking. But when he put them by themselves, I know doing that stuff with Rick with those vignettes, he was a natural. He got it. It's just that neither one of them had great public speaking experience or background. And so somebody should have helped him a little bit more and producing the interview. But then, of course, again, there was no writers. There's a blessing and a curse there. But if you're not going to have a writer, you got to have a point person. You got to have a producer, a booker, somebody on the booking committee, somebody that can stop the promo and say, let's say this, we can't say that, whatever. But I think everybody just kind of went unfettered, and the goal was to do it in one take. And sometimes that don't work. Very rarely does it work unless you're extraordinary like Rick or somebody, Flair, whatever.
Let's keep it moving. Let's talk about the next match. We've got Lex Luger and Brian Pillman. The United States Championship is on the line. I wish that if you're a connoisseur of wrestling commentary, go back and just listen to the way Bob Caudle and Jim Ross put over Lex Luger on his march to the ring. JR is going to put over where he was recruited and who he was recruited by for college, and then talk about how he ultimately went to play professional football and was the youngest player to ever play professional football, where he played and how long. And Bob Caudle is going to talk about how there's no denying that this is the next caliber athlete that's going to carry professional wrestling into the 1990s. Just remarkable stuff, putting him over before the bell ever rang. And then unfortunately it did. But here's the deal. As much as I want to make fun of this is one of Lex Luger's best matches he ever had. 3.25 stars, 16 minutes and 48 seconds. Ultimately Luger gets the win using a hot shot where, the backstory with Brian Pillman, he's going to drop him throat first on the top rope. That's going to be enough after all the surgeries that Pillman's had throughout his life, which we all know about. That's going to be the finish. The crowd's going to pop really, really big for it. I thought this was an excellent match. And going into this, I thought, boy, Pillman's got his work cut out for him, but my goodness, it was good stuff. And, lots of cheers for both guys. There weren't, this isn't your typical heel baby face situation, at least not in Philadelphia. I thought it was really, really well done.
I did too. It showed you how great Brian Pillman could have been if he had not run afoul of bad personal decisions involving drugs and alcohol, and then of course being involved in the Humvee accident. None of us know just how good he would have been, but I can tell you that I would bet everything I own that he would have been one of the stars we talk about all the time in different terms than a drug and alcohol issue or a Humvee accident. So athletic and fearless. He had natural charisma just oozing out of his pores. And he overcome the small guy thing because he was an All-American nose guard in college, nose tackle, playing over the center on the defensive line at 225. Second team AP All-American. The first team All-American was William Perry, who weighed 325. So Brian was a phenomenal overachiever. 32 or 33 throat operations when he was a little kid. That's why he had that raspy voice. I loved him, man. I really did. When Kim Wood was a strength coach at the Cincinnati Bengals, one of the most respected men in the NFL, and he was a big fan of wrestling. And Brian, of course, grew up in Cincinnati and played for the Bengals, and then he went to play for the CFL and get trained to wrestle by the Harts in Calgary. But Kim Wood, while Brian was in Calgary, would send me pictures of Brian and little notes. So he's doing this, he's doing that, because we couldn't text. That didn't exist. So I arranged to bring him in. So he did everything right. I called Stu and he would like to hire him, bring him in, and put him on TBS. We don't want to leave you high and dry. So give us an out date that suits you, and we'll work around it. And that's what we did. That's how you did business back then, honorably and up front. And so I just loved Brian. I really did, man. One of the worst conversations I ever got one time, heartbreaking, was Jack Lanza told me that, said, JR, something's wrong with your boy here. I said, which one? And he said, Pillman, I'm worried about him. And I said, well, what's why? And he said, well, right now he's in the locker room. I can see in the locker room on a payphone. And he's curled up in a fetal position in a corner of the locker room sleeping. So, of course, me trying to be the defending uncle. Well, maybe he's tired. Of course, that's bullshit. And I said, okay, you're with him tomorrow night, right, Jack? You're booked. I think in Portland or Seattle somewhere. And I said, I'm going to have a guy there tomorrow night that's going to drug test him. So you just know that the fellow's coming. I'm going to have him ask for you, and you get it done. So okay, so there I do that. The next night, I'm in Connecticut, Eastern time. Jan's already in bed. I had fallen asleep in my chair, famously, and the phone rings, home phone rings. About midnight, no, what time was it? Yeah, around midnight Eastern. And Brian was on the other line with that raspy voice screaming at me. I can't believe you did this to me. I can't believe that you're having me drug test. I can't believe that this is happening. And I thought you were my friend, and I thought you were my corner. Brian, I am. I don't want you to die. And if you're going to sleep every night in a fetal position in a goddamn locker room, something ain't right. Did you do that for the Bengals? Did you go to sleep in a fetal position in the locker room for the Bengals? No, you didn't. So I said, and look, if there's nothing in your system that's negative, that's going to hurt you, then so I just did it precautionarily, and good for you. You're clean. But if there's something else there, we gotta know so we can nip this shit in the bud. We got plans for you. But man, he was so mad at me. He hated me for about a day. Then he called me back to the office a day later. I'm sorry. I was all this and that. That's the relationship you had. But you got to, Barry Switzer told me one time when you recruit and sign players, recruiting in college or whatever, they're yours for life. And I've always looked at it about Brian. I look that way to a lesser degree about his kid, Brian Pillman Jr. He knows if I can ever help him in a productive way, I'm here. But a lot of those guys are that way. I show the same relationships with all the wrestlers I signed. They're joined to your hip whether you like it or not, and so there you are. So Brian was such a wasted opportunity. Unfortunately, just the hand when they fused his ankle. When Brian Pillman's ankle was fused, his heart was broken because he knew physically it was essentially over. He could never be the athlete that he was before the ankle fusion, and it killed him almost and maybe literally.
Man, that's a hell of a sidebar and some heavy stuff. And now we're going to talk about the silliness that is the goddamn Thunderdome.
Thunderdome.
So here's the concept. You guys have, in this company, made cage matches famous. You know, I mean, you've had the steel mesh cages and Jim Crockett Promotions that were just legendary. And of course, on the other channel, there's this big blue monstrosity. It's just not nearly the same. But here you guys are going to try something a little different. The cage doesn't just fly in from the ceiling like normal for the war games. There's no top on it. And it's not even mesh. It's your version of the big blue cage, but it sort of leans in. There's a second set that leans in towards the top and makes it impossible for you to climb over and escape, but it's no longer on the ring apron. Now it goes all the way around. So you can actually run around the ring and still be inside the cage. And this thing is decorated with silly props and vines and I don't know, scary Halloween themed silliness. And
or you could say, Conrad, it was decorated with Mickey Mouse horse shit.
Yeah. I mean, how about tree branches, a Tarzan swinging rope, dragons facing outward, cobwebs, a mailbox. I can't believe that this is real, but Meltzer wrote, the cage looked awesome with tree branches, a Tarzan swinging rope inside, dragons facing outward, cobwebs, and a mailbox on one side. The cage was so visually impressive, it took away from the concentration of the match, which, Lord, I thought this thing looked fucking goofy. I totally disagree. Bruno's the ref, and we've got two Terminators. Now, what is a Terminator? Well, I'm glad you asked. We've got someone in the corner of the good guys, and that's Ole Anderson. Yes, Ole Anderson is the good guy, and Gary Hart is in the corner of the bad guys. And these are your Terminators. Now, what the fuck is a Terminator? They give both of these guys a white towel, and the only way to have the match end is for one of these managers to throw in the towel, surrendering his team. And with that, we see the cage come down. And by the way, you've got four of the all-time greats in here. Ric Flair and Sting, they're together. They're not opposed. They're on the same team, and they're taking on Terry Funk and Great Muta. Of course, they're both members of Gary Hart's stable. It's silly to say the least, but as soon as the damn thing comes down, there's a little fireworks display, and it catches some of the props on fire to the point that Tommy Young has to climb up there to try to put it out. He has a little help from a WCW staffer of the production team. And surely just to be funny, the Great Muta climbs up and sprays some green mist on it, trying to put out the fire. And you guys mentioned that, but you guys are clearly reaching for something here, but it's a weird, I think you even referred to it as Australian tag rules.
Well, it started out that way. As an Australian tag rule, one man on each team in the ring it legally at one time, which is something we need to work on in AEW right now, but nonetheless, and everybody does. Somewhere along the way, people got to start adhering to and respecting and utilizing the referees. It's real simple. Another story for another podcast, no doubt about that. But yeah, it was too gimmicky. I had no issues basically with the cage or the unescapable cage and all that good stuff. And I understood too why we went to the old WWE like blue cage, big blue, so people could climb up and screw around at the top, and it was just a lot easier to manipulate and to maneuver in.
Well, here's the thing. They're not supposed to be climbing on the motherfuckers. You guys announced that it's an electrified cage. And as soon as you get that out of your fucking mouth, they're climbing up the motherfucker and nobody's getting electrocuted. Like, it's just, and then you start to say, okay, well, just the top is electrocuted until they start swinging on that shit. And it's like, how is this possible where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, to where you guys are saying it's an electrified cage? Somebody forgot to tell the goddamn wrestlers to pretend to be electrocuted. This is unbelievable.
Because you don't have one person that is the go-to, the stopgap, the decision maker to spread the word. And we had a lot of really good guys in that booking committee. Guys are much smarter than I, but we didn't have one goddamn guy there because they were all active participants for the most part. I mean, Jim Barnett wasn't, my God. But seriously, there was no leadership. Conrad, I've mentioned it so many times of the frustrations that came, just poured out of my body in the WCW years. I made great friends. I made good money. I loved living in Atlanta. All that stuff. It's all true. It's all true. I was living my dream on a national televised show, and I was one of the lead broadcaster on the WCW broadcast for a good while, and all the things to be thankful for I am. But God Almighty, the leadership. And what it was that Jim Barnett convinced Ted Turner to buy Crockett and take over the deal, how great it's going to be, and have his own programming, first-run programming every week, very cheap. And it was, quite frankly. When you look at furnishing somebody a live 2-hour show on Saturday and a 1-hour show on Friday night and a 1-hour show on Sunday night for X dollars, I don't know how much money we actually lost because they're going to buy that programming from somewhere. And there's no guarantee it's going to get the ratings that we got. Well, back a few minutes ago, we're talking about Power Hour doing 5 million viewers, right? Did we say that? 5 million viewers, 5.3?
Well, it was Clash of the Champions, but yeah.
Clash of Champions, I'm sorry. Okay. That's a hell of a rating. What are shows doing now? Does SmackDown do 5 million viewers a week now on national television? No. Does Raw do it on USA? No. Are we doing it? Nope. It was a hell of a rating. So I don't know how bad it was. Now, the issue about the same sponsors you mentioned earlier, that comes back on the sales team. That bullshit don't have nothing to do with the wrestling. If the numbers are there and the households are delivered and documented along with the viewers, the number of viewers, it's up to the sales department to sell those numbers and package their ads or promotions or whatever and give the sponsors a reason to buy. They were not doing that. So I don't know, man. I thought that the cage on paper looked like a good idea. We gimmicked it up, acquiesced to outsiders, giving feedback, a Tarzan rope. Are you shitting me? A Tarzan rope. What's that? How come we don't have a Jane rope? That would be equality. We got Tarzan rope.
Let's mention this too. There's no blood in this match. You had been promoting on TV. Parental discretion is advised. And a bloodbath was almost fucking word for word promised in the promotion, but there's no blood in this match. Now, we talked earlier how TBS didn't want blood on TV, but maybe they don't have to, use those same rules on pay-per-view. But here, the Pennsylvania state law would dictate there's no blood. Now, there's no longer a commission here at this point. However, there's a law on the books at this point that says any blading could result in the loss of licensing for the promotion. So as a result, there's no blood in this match, where it's been very strongly suggested and almost expected because it's a goddamn cage match called the Thunderdome.
Yeah.
You just assume that that's going to be the case. And there are some silly spots in here that are kind of fun when Funk is holding on to the top of the cage, not being electrocuted. Flair is chopping him while they're both at the top of the cage. And then eventually a little bit of common sense sets in. Flair starts working on the knee. It becomes a more traditional match.
Beautiful.
The fans are really, really into it because they know when he starts working on the knee, he's getting ready to set up his finishing maneuver, the figure 4. And fans are in tune with that and popping for every little thing. Eventually there is the biggest shenanigan ever, where Muta is going to get in a shoving match with Bruno Sammartino. And eventually Gary Hart's towel comes flying in by accident. Once Ole nails Gary Hart, Gary's towel goes flying. It lands on Bruno. Bruno sees the towel, raises Flair's hand in victory. From a historical standpoint, It's pretty significant. I assume this is the only time that Ric Flair and Terry Funk and Bruno Sammartino were ever in the ring at the same time. But there's so much other shit going on. I don't know that anybody really put that together at the time. Meltzer, believe it or not, gave this match 4 stars. I thought it was a jumbled mess. I would have much preferred just a regular tag match, but I guess the gimmicks at the time for the audience at the time in Philadelphia, they dug it. What'd you think? 4 stars?
Maybe not 4, but certainly close to it. And I wouldn't argue Dave's 4-star deal. I enjoyed the match. Take away the things that the boys could not control. That stupid structure that they were asked to perform in. Don't discount that from your voting or your feelings in the match. The story that was told and the pairing of Cuban Sting and Muta together, I thought that here's the deal, man. I would watch Terry Funk and Ric Flair wrestle every day. Every goddamn day, because I know this. They wouldn't spend all afternoon going over their spots. They wouldn't spend all afternoon impersonating their match and going boom, boom, boom. Then I'll boom, boom, boom you. Then you boom, boom. Then God, you guys are booming my ass off here. What are you doing? You're rehearsing a match so they never did that. So that means this: every match would have been different. And the common denominator is always Flair's always going to work on the leg, because his finish is the figure 4. Always going to work on the leg. And people expected that because of his established finish that worked more often. Well, it worked a lot of times. So anyway, I think that I think the match is okay. I love the star power in it. You got Bruno out of position, but Bruno in that match. I love the fact you just pointed out about Bruno, Terry, and Rick in the ring the same first time ever. Maybe the last time ever, right?
Gotta be.
Yeah. So, and I thought the pop Bruno got in Philly when he nailed Muta, who took a phenomenal bump. He sold that punch like he got hit by a mule. It was really emotional. And the other nice thing about that is that, I think Bob Caudle and I were working there at ringside, obviously we were working ringside, but that beginning thing, when the thing got caught on fire at the very beginning of the match, I thought, oh shit, this is going to be an omen. We're in for we may be in for a long night, but I don't know if we got 4 stars, Conrad. I thought it was really well done. And Terry Funk's selling of his leg was so real, so believable, not eye-rolling, phony pro wrestling horse shit. It was real to me, how he sold his leg, and Rick was attacking the leg, the quads. It was just awesome. It was awesome. Different variation, different application was just phenomenal. Then the spots they did were the team spots with Sting and Flair against Terry, who was in the figure 4, I thought it was pretty unique. I thought it was pretty good. So I enjoyed it. I really did. I enjoyed it because I'm a big fan of the participants in that match. Still am to this very day.
Well, you said it was going to be a long night. Here's a question. How'd you sleep last night? Did you spend the night tossing and turning? If you've been waking up with a stiff neck or back pain, man, you're wasting your life. You're wasting your time, man. And really, you think about how much time we spend on our mattress. It only makes sense to get the right fit for you. And if you've been struggling to get a good night's sleep, man, you've got to try a Purple mattress. Now, Purple, as you've heard us talk about here on the show, was founded by 2 brothers who've been developing cushioning technology for 30 years for things like medical beds and wheelchairs. And then a few years ago, they decided to use this patented comfort technology to create Purple. And what is Purple? Well, it's the world's most scientific mattress. And I know what you're thinking. Well, how's it different from all the other mattresses? Well, Purple is going to feel different than anything you've probably ever experienced because it uses a brand new material that freaking rocket scientists created. It's not like memory foam. It feels very unique because it's both firm and soft at the same time, but it allows you to keep everything supported and still feel very, very comfortable. Plus it's breathable. And as a fat guy, I love that because I run hot and this lets me sleep cool. It ends up giving you like this zero gravity type feel. It's going to work for any sleeping position. And they feel so strongly that you're going to love Purple. They give you a guarantee that you can't get on almost any other product. It's a 100-night risk-free trial. If you're not fully satisfied, you can return your mattress for a full refund. And how about this? They back it with a 10-year warranty. Anytime you see a 10-year warranty, you know it's a good product, and they know you're going to love it if they give you a 100-night risk-free trial. They also make sure their shipping and their return, which you won't need, is free, and they'll even come set it up for free and take out the old mattress. I'm confident you're going to love Purple, and right now our listeners can get a free Purple pillow with the purchase of a mattress. That's in addition to the great free gifts they're offering site-wide right now. Just text JR to 84-888. Now, the only way to get the free pillow is to text JR to 84-888. That's JR to 84888. Of course, your message and data rates may apply, but you need this free pillow to go with your great new Purple mattress. Text JR to 84-888.
Saw an interesting tweet the other day, Conrad. You may recall somebody had bought a Purple mattress after listening to our show, and then they were raving about it. That's the kind of stuff you'd like to hear, the feedback like that. So any products we're promoting that you're using, let us know on social or wherever, and we can. It's good feedback for us. But I learned this a long time ago, man. There's nothing like a good night's sleep, and for so many years, I wasn't getting a good night's sleep, and I do now. I do now, and I think that we take good sleep for granted, and that's a kiss of death. Especially if you don't sleep well, you get restless leg or whatever. This is a calming, wonderful, serene, euphoric mattress that fits to your body. As Conrad says, it breathes. I love that aspect because I'm a rather large person as well, if you haven't noticed. But there's nothing to lose. 100 free nights, 100 nights, and if you decide on night 99 you don't like it, well, then you're not out anything. It's no lose, folks. And here's the worst thing can happen. You discover that you've been sleeping on the wrong mattress all along, and you finally found the right one. It's called Purple Mattress.
Absolutely. And let me mention too, the tweet you were talking about came to us from Rob Schaefer, and we appreciate Rob tweeting in. He writes, so I bought a Purple mattress about a month ago. It's an absolutely awesome mattress. I have some of the best sleep ever. When I wake up, I'm not exhausted. I used to be a 2-time snooze button guy, but now I wake right up. No snooze needed. And this is a real tweet from this past weekend. So don't take our word for it. This is not a paid ad from Rob. Rob's just giving his real testimony. He loves his and you'll love yours. So what are you waiting for? Text JR to 84-888. You're going to get a great pillow. You're going to get free shipping. You're going to get free returns and 100 nights risk-free. Why wouldn't you do this?
We believe in this product, folks, wholeheartedly, and they obviously believe in it as well, because ain't going to give you no 10-year warranty or 100 nights to try it if it ain't a great product. And this is a great product, and there's nothing really, think about it, nothing more important than a good night's sleep, I'm telling you. And the place to go, the place to lay your body down is the Purple mattress.
I do want to mention the Wrestling Observer reader poll. They gave this show 48.1% thumbs up and 49.8% thumbs down. So just a razor thin margin between thumbs up, thumbs down, only 2.1% thumbs in the middle. It's rare that you see it this polarizing. Usually it's mostly up or mostly down, and then middle sort of fills out the rest. In this case, it's about 50-50. What say you? I mean, does the star power make up for the content?
I thought it was no worse than a middle of the road show. I thought it was, I didn't, watching it back was kind of nostalgic and fun for me, seeing a lot of my friends and like I said, listen to Bob and work with Bob was always wonderful to hear. Someday I'm really going to covet that. God bless him. I love him. Good man. Gosh, he made me a better man.
You know what?
But I said middle of the road. I didn't hate it. Was it the best pay-per-view that we did at WCW? Don't think so. But I don't think it was a train wreck whatsoever. I thought some of the guys, here's what I know. You go back and look at the main event. Look at how hard these guys are working. Look at how athletic Muta is, how his timing is impeccable. Look at the presence of Ole and Gary Hart. The presence, the feel that they brought to the equation. Ole wearing his belt and a pair of black suspenders, safety man. So I just, and then seeing Bruno Bruno feeling that one big pop one more time out of physicality, doing what he was made famous, and that is defending himself and his honor. Muta put his hands on the referee, and the referee, instead of admonishing him, gave him a right hand. I just loved all that stuff. So it was fun things, and again, the all-star cast is just hard to overlook in my view.
We should mention too that we, I guess I was so anxious to talk about the Thunderdome. I totally missed the Road Warriors and the Skyscrapers right smack dab in the middle of this show. And what's interesting when you watch this back on the network, they did not clip out the Road Warrior theme song. It's still in there. Iron Man is still in there. And these guys look like absolute fucking badasses coming to the ring and in their pre-match promo. Their gimmick was once in a lifetime, so far ahead of their time. And they're putting over that they're the greatest tag team in history on commentary. And that's really kind of hard to argue over. They are with the crowd, and they don't just have the shoulder pads on when they come down. They've got shin guards like they were catching for the Braves, but they've been adorned with the spikes as well. They're going to take on the Skyscrapers, Dan Spivey and Sid Vicious. Of course, Teddy Long is with them. Teddy Long is running around at ringside with this goofy fucking key, this oversized key. But Sid, you can see right here, is going to be a very, very big star in this business. He has that intangible it. I think Hawk has it as well. Not to disparage Spivey or Animal. They definitely played their role, but Hawk and Sid really just jumped off the television screen. Of course, the Road Warriors get the win. No surprise, but it's by DQ. They go 11 minutes and 39 seconds. I dug the match for what it was, but the presentation of the Road Warriors and the poster, they're on the poster for Halloween Havoc 89. It fits, does it not?
Yeah. Oh, it does. They face paint, make a great, Hawk and Animal make great, the paint will be good Halloween masks. I'm sure they've made them, and they're maybe out there now. Hell, I don't know. I haven't bought my mask yet for Halloween. This is tonight, and I guess I'll just punt. They didn't lose much, and that was another issue. I was doing our research here. The only match I can remember them losing by pinfall, they got beat by the Midnight Express at a live event in Memphis that did not make a lot of the people happy because it was a violation of what they wanted. What was called, but same deal. No accountability, no leadership, no buck stop swear. Nobody wants to take ownership of things, and that's why I say you got to be very judicious and have the right bond and chemistry in the booking committee, because it's very easy to create uneasy, peaceful feeling to the roster when you are working with them and you're also booking the matches. I don't care who it is. Every booker, it's always that way. It's always been that way. Even when Cowboy owned Mid-South, he'd come out of retirement and draw big houses, and that's just he got over, and so it's just that it was a strange deal. It's a strange feeling thing how that works. Quite frankly, but you're right about the star power. The charisma exuded from Hawk more than anybody, more than Joe. And Joe's a friend. Joe's a talented guy, but Hawk had that it thing. And then of course, Sid, the sky was really the limit. The limit was Sid. He had no bounds how big, how good he could have been, but it didn't work out that way. But Sid's probably one of the biggest unfortunate developments. I thought he had the chance to be as good and draw as much money as anybody ever, but for various reasons, it just didn't happen.
I do want to get your take on this too. I don't know how many folks this stuck out to when they watched it this week, but you've got 8 matches on the card. 5 are tag matches.
Yeah.
The only singles matches are Z-Man and Rotunda, Rich and Cuban Assassin, and Luger and Pillman. The rest, all tag matches. We've talked about before how Vince didn't necessarily love tag matches. It would increase your overhead, paying 4 guys in a match instead of 2, and plus the actual travel. No worry here though. JCP was built on tag matches, and maybe that's never more evident than here, where 5 of the 8 are tag matches. Does that say more about Cornette being a booker than anything else, or what would you attribute that to?
I contribute to getting more talent work, getting more people on the card so that they can earn a few more dollars. That's what I attribute it to. and trying to bring peace in the valley. I've been talking about this thing now, where if you're a wrestler and an active performer and you're in your decision-making role, i.e. the booking committee, sometimes you got to go way above and beyond to make as many people as you can happy, so you can ease their apprehensions for at least for one big show. That show is grossly overbooked. You never want that many tag team matches on a show. You don't want that many of anything. You don't want that many cage matches or tag matches or Texas death matches or anything. Give me a variety of things, but it's all got to be based on sound, fundamental pro wrestling from bell to bell. Different presentations, with the same basic product of solidness and cohesion and logic. But all that was, Conrad, was just trying to get as many guys on the payroll as we could. And even if we said to Herd, we're not going to use the Road Warriors on the show, for example. No, that was never said, by the way. He would push back on that concept because we're paying the Road Warriors so much money. God damn it, they got to work. We got to get our money's worth out of these guys. So that's kind of how that was. It was a matter of trying to get everybody work. But obviously, Cornette was a very crucial member of tag team development in pro wrestling in this country for several decades. So and a lot of our guys, Sullivan had been involved in tag teams and factions. So and nobody had a pushback on it. We broke all of our own pro wrestling rules to adhere to the upper management's lack of intellect, and they're justifying, well, put this guy on the card. Did we need to have Tommy Rich and the Cuban Assassin on that show in Philly? Now, in some markets, it probably was a good play. And both of them both those guys are solid as hell. If both David Sierra and Tommy Rich are young right now, and they've been making themselves a lot of money because they're excellent in-ring performers and can work with anybody. You can't say that about a lot of wrestlers nowadays. They can work with anybody. That's an ultimate compliment. So I think the show was politically booked, trying to adhere to the desires of Turner Home Entertainment and the upper TVS management who got to go in the locker room, as I said earlier. Just it was ill-conceived. You're right, Conrad. That's a good point, though, about the tag matches. Too damn many of them. How do you make them all different? You don't. And so some of them get shit on, i.e., we talked about that. Even Cornette couldn't get a great match out of the dynamic dudes. Too much. This didn't work. We didn't use our brain, man. We're just being influenced to do what we were told to do and to try to make the corporation happy. Corporate wrestling is not a friend of the fans or the talent, I can promise you.
Well, not too much longer after this, we get one of the greatest matches of all time, and we're going to cover it in just 2 weeks. It's Clash of the Champions, New York Knockout. It's Clash 9. Man, what a great match. We're going to revisit that one on November 14th, but I know what you're thinking. Well, what's next week? Boy, we're going to set the internet ablaze next week. It's hashtag Ask JR Anything. And given that we've had a red ass JR the last few weeks, I'm looking forward to this. Hashtag Ask JR Anything. Follow us on Twitter if you haven't already. We're going to have a post up by the time this show loads. It'll be pinned to the top where you can ask your questions. And the way to do this is just follow us on Twitter. It's at JR Grilling. That's at JR Grilling. And then next Thursday, well, get your popcorn ready, boys and girls. Jim's coming and he's bringing hell with him.
You're damn right. And, Conrad, I'm anxious to see that if any of those folks had 3 or 4 followers. I had a response to a gent the other day. I said, he just ripped my ass. And I looked at his deal and he had 5 followers. And I'm thinking, well, so I said something to the effect that I hate to lose you and your 5 followers, but you're blocked. And so it'll be interesting to see if anybody else of that ilk and that mindset sends us some questions. There's no off limits, folks. I'm serious. Let's keep it clean. We ain't got to, use overly foul language and keep it in good taste if we can. But there's nothing. There's no theme or topic off limits. So keep that in mind. And I ain't gonna bullshit you. You can handle the truth, no doubt about it. Hey, Conrad, the truth is this weekend I'm going to be in California. You know that, right?
I did know that. You're going to be at Dave & Buster's in Ontario, and you're going to be doing a meet and greet and a little Q&A, and fans should be checking it out. It's this weekend, Ontario, California. What day is it again, Jim?
Saturday.
Well, there you go.
Saturday. I'll be there from 2 to 6. It's a long one. It's an afternoon there. We're going to sign your swag and do a Q&A, meet and greet, and just have a fun afternoon. It's this Saturday afternoon. That's at 4821 Mills Circle in Ontario, California, kids. So check it out. Hope you'll love to see you there. I've never done a Q&A, at least as I can remember. I don't think I have in Southern California yet. Conrad and I have yet to go out there. We're going to. Don't get me wrong, but we both like working with Dave & Buster's. They're good people. They're wrestling fans. I kind of like that. They respect us and you. I think that's pretty cool. So it's this Saturday afternoon, Dave & Buster's. I want to thank the Inland Empire Toy Store for bringing me in, and it's going to be fun. A little VIP experience on Saturday afternoon. So come join us if you can. And then, Conrad, you and I are so excited about going to Nashville. We talk about a doubleheader, folks. Connie and I got a doubleheader coming up in a couple of weeks in Nashville.
That's exactly right. I can't believe it's finally here, but AEW's coming to Nashville on November 13th. They're going to paint the town red. And then right after, you'll be joining myself and Tony Schiavone at Zany's, just a few blocks away from the building. Tickets are on sale now at supershowlive.com. So cruise on over to supershowlive.com right now. Pick up your tickets. Nashville is in for a real treat with Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross, the voice of your childhood. Going to ask these guys anything. And after a long night of wrestling and maybe a few cocktails, you never know what might come up. But, and also too, I know for sure there's at least 3 AEW talent who plan on stopping by. So stay tuned. This is going to be an eventful night at Zany. Supershowlive.com is where you can snatch those tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. That's 2 weeks. By the way, this Wednesday night, folks, speaking of my friend Tony Schiavone, I'm so happy that Tony is getting the recognition and the acknowledgement of how good he was then and how much better he is now, in my view, as a broadcaster. Tony adding to our team is making all of us better, and I hope that an Excalibur has got an unlimited future. Very, very smart guy, really a student of the game. And our goal, Tony and I talked about this, we want to make him the best announcer in the business at some point in time, and maybe we can do that. He can get that done with our help. That's what we plan on doing, trying to play it forward for everybody that we come in contact with. Somebody wrote me a question the other day, said about, do you get embarrassed about announcing a match with somebody? Maybe it was Jimmy Havoc or somebody. I said, no. Are you stupid? I've done matches with every kind of character there is, from the Adrian Streets to the Andre the Giants. No, man. And I'm really accustomed to running the plays that the coach calls. It doesn't bother me, man. It doesn't bother me at all.
It's weird to me that all of a sudden people forget that you had to call Mae Young giving birth to a hand, and Katie Vick getting the D slung on her by Triple H in a mask, and hot lesbian action there is so many low points in the history of professional wrestling where guys were just getting out there creatively, and for better or worse, there were a lot of misses. But then we're going to take issue with a new, unique character like Jimmy Havoc or Orange Cassidy. Yeah, they may be controversial. Yeah, they may stir up a little bit of talk, but goddamn, we're going to act like that's the worst thing Jim's had to call in his career. He had his ass shoved up Vince McMahon's head. What the fuck are we talking about?
Yeah, no kidding. It's an interesting society we live in. I'm trying to be more patient, more tolerant, but I kind of feel I'm a little scared sometimes about where the future of our country is going. If some of these social media things I get are any indication of what people think. And the other thing is that somebody said this week, said, well, JR, you're going to be screwed when McMahon buys out when the AEW goes out of business and McMahon buys all the contracts or whatever this is, something to that effect. Well, let me tell you something. You can do a Google search of net worth. Put Shad Khan on your little screen, and it's going to pop up $8.2 billion. He owns AEW. His net worth is $8.2 billion. That's in Conrad Thompson land. Man ain't done too bad. He's worth, I think, $2.3 or $2.5 billion. So if you do basic math, kids, Mr. Khan is not going to run out of money. We're not going to give him any reason to think about pulling the plug. He loves what we do, and we're going to build a brand here. That's all. But we can't do it in 4 weeks. You got to fix this. You got to fix that.
This is all so exhausting. Like, dude, you know what? I never cared what rating The Sopranos got or how much money the directors made. Or just fucking watch what you like. And we hope you like what we did this week on the show. And if you don't, go fuck yourself with BlueChew.com and use promo code JR. They didn't advertise this week, but there's your free plug. Let's just enjoy wrestling. Listen, there's enough people outside of this wrestling bubble who think that what we love so much is stupid. The last thing we need to do is fuck each other up on these things too. Come on. Let's all come together as wrestling fans. Watch what you like. If you don't like something on the show, it's not for you. Fast forward it on the DVR. The next segment will have something for you. And we've got something for everybody next week, right here on Grill and JR. It's hashtag Ask JR Anything. Follow us on Twitter right now at JR Grilling. Ask your questions and tune in next Thursday. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review if you think we earned it. Tell a friend and hit that subscribe button. It's free. We look forward to visiting with you next Thursday and every Thursday right here on Grill and JR with the voice of wrestling, Jim Ross. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.